Hello, everyone, and welcome to part two of our discussion of the true shape of the Earth, as it were. Once again, I am joined by Ali, and at the end of our previous conversation, it was a little bit of a surprise to us. I didn't think it was going to go on that long. I didn't think that we would have that much of interest to talk about it. But our perspectives are obviously very wide set apart. And in the interim, I got a couple messages from Ali saying that he had forgotten some things that he wanted to share in the last discussion. So I'm going to invite him to do that now.
It's all basically just from the questions that I was being asked. So to kind of go back over all of that, it to me at this point wouldn't be effective at that point. At this point, I should say.
When we were on this last time, we weren't able to read all of the viewers' questions, so I'm going to throw some of these out. Or, no, I've got the list, not her, so I'll read it out. What evidence would convince you that a spherical Earth is correct?
There isn't any.
If I could prove it, you'd reject that proof.
Yes, because you can't prove it.
But if I could prove it, and I can, you would reject that proof.
Here we go. I would reject the proof because you can't prove it.
But if I can prove it, you would reject the proof.
We're going to keep going over it because I'm not going to say, yes, I reject the proof, because that would be insinuating that I have some doubt. What I'm saying is, there is no proof that you can provide that the Earth is round.
If I had a spaceship and I could take you into the spaceship, into orbit,
let's go
circle around the Earth and watch the Earth circle under us, you would reject even that?
If that could happen, I would have to say no. If you're doing that, if you're setting up that scenario.
All right, there are other ways to prove this. And because it's important that we never say that you're not going to change your mind, and that no amount of proof would ever make you change your mind.
I have to say that unless you're coming up with some hypothetical situation that would cause me to say otherwise. But in real life, between me and you, the Earth is flat.
And I can demonstrate in myriad ways that it is.
I want you to please show me. Please show me.
Okay. Well, first of all, you said that the way that you changed your mind was you saw the illusion of the sun with clouds behind it. And unfortunately, most of this could be rectified with just a few airline flights. But you said you'd only been on a plane once, and you fell asleep on that one flight. But had you been looking out the window to notice, you would have seen that the highest clouds were thousands of feet below you, and the sun is still way far away above the airplane.
Yeah, it is.
It's not possible ever.
It's 93 million miles away, right? All right. So this is
in an airplane. You see that the highest clouds are below you always.
Sir, I understand.
Okay.
I was not born the day before we got on a video cast at 40 years old. An airplane flight when I was like 12 years old. Of me, conclusion that the Earth is flat has been my entire life. Defining moments. It has been a myriad of things that have just caused me to get to this point.
Okay, so you
video
understand
that I watched at some point.
So you understand that it is never possible.
Come on.
But I am coming on. You understand that it is never possible for the clouds to be behind the sun.
Okay. What I would like to say is that I understand that there are levels of clouds. I've seen video footage from a camera that has very good comes to zooming. I've seen the sun pull clouds as it's going through them.
No, you haven't.
You want me to get on it? You want to get me on an airplane? I guarantee you get me on an airplane, I can show you that the Earth is flat, or give you some question there, give you some doubt. Don't set me up to prove yourself wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that even if it was an accident.
You see how you got your point? You stand on that. I'm going to stand on mine. Sometime between the two of us, we're going to come to the truth.
What you're
You
standing
can
on is an illusion that
describe it.
it could only have been an illusion.
Mhm.
And the way to demonstrate that is absolutely every single time
Okay.
you get on an airplane, you will see that the highest clouds are below you, the sun is way above you. It can
Mhm.
never be that the sun is in the midst of the clouds or that the clouds are behind
Okay.
the sun from your perspective on the ground.
Okay.
So, but that was the thing that changed your mind in the first place, and it was only an illusion. That was never possible. So
It was not the only thing, but
okay, but that
I'll let you
one
continue.
thing, and we can go systematically on any other thing, but that one
But
thing
that's
was an
like-
illusion. Okay, and so there was another
Okay.
question. I just want to get through the viewer questions. There was only
All right, let's go.
three. There were only three, so that was the first one. And how does he explain all the predictions we can make via the heliocentric model, or heliocentric model? I guess that's a good question. We'll leave it there. Go ahead.
That is a good question. I believe the answer to that question is we have ancient calendars from thousands of years old that we have found. We have all kind of ancient measurements of time and the celestial bodies through all of these things date back to a very long period of time. According to scientists, the thing is that the night sky has not changed in all this time. If we would just offer just one moment, a pause to just think about things for one moment, how is the night sky the same as it's been if all of these stars have the potential to be burning billions of light years away, and light that we see here now could exist from a star that died years ago? Those lights can still be tracked in the night sky. All of them can be tracked in the night sky. If there is a planet or star or something that is in our night sky that existed but doesn't exist now, I would like to see something like that. But I don't think that I would like to see it. If it's not computer generated images from NASA and we actually have some clear pictures from space, I think that I would like to see that.
Well, we have some
if I could
historic
interject-
mentions.
Fantastic story.
Arna, the night sky has changed.
Okay, yeah, yes, ma'am.
The North Pole has changed.
Yes, I believe you.
13,000 years ago, the North Star was Vega, and in
Right.
So
And it's actually supposed to change from Polaris to the other star in another astronomical amount of years. Is that correct? Is that what you're mentioning?
yes,
Yes. So I understand what you're saying. I'm not just someone who's just fantastically fascinated with the flat earth and don't know what I'm speaking of, but I understand what you're meaning. So I'm not saying that those stars, that the polar shift can't change. What I'm saying is Polaris still exists from this day as it did ancient times. Our constellations are fixed to exist
do you
as
have,
they did in ancient times, as they do now.
do you have any
Ma'am,
idea why the North Star changes?
do you know why the night sky has remained the same since it has for ancient times? I do know why that it hasn't.
No. There are
Has-
recorded historic reportings of bright lights in the sky.
Let's see the reports. You want to show me proof? Show me proof.
Okay. As I was saying, there are reports that of intense lights in the sky appearing for a number of weeks and then disappearing altogether. So I mean, the night sky may have had supernovas or what have you occurred, and then we don't have those stars anymore. So I mean, there's also time-lapse photography that you can get on astronomypictureoftheday.com, and it shows that how the night
I'm not-
sky is a boiling mass.
I'll take a look at it.
Okay. But now on the question of, if the explanations of the heliocentric model, I mean, this was something that, other people had told me not to get into with you, but I think it's necessary
It is.
to understand the way that science has, models and has a requirement to explain things.
Mhm.
Because previously you said, for example, that the stars move around as they do because they have free will.
Certain stars do that
Yeah,
way
okay.
because
Well,
they were precious to God when he created them.
okay. Well, we can't get into that because I mean, there's no God either, and they don't have
Right.
souls. I mean, so
Your whole purpose is to prove that there isn't
my whole purpose is to prove that there isn't what?
a God.
I don't have
God.
a purpose to prove that there's not a God.
Okay.
I only state that that in having made the claim that there is a God, you have not substantiated that claim. You've given me no reason to believe that. But that's
Right.
not what we're talking about today.
No, we're
Today
not.
we're talking about things that can be proved either way.
I would like to see the proof beyond what I have been told and shown from science, astronauts, and NASA my entire life.
Okay, we can get into
Show me
that. So,
something different
different from what?
than what I've been shown my entire life.
Okay, so like in the early models of the planetary motions, for example, I don't know if you're going to say at some point that there was a conspiracy to cover up this or that or
It
change
doesn't
history or
matter.
whatever.
Continue.
Okay, so we have the explanations of the planetary movements. You know, like Kepler, for example, was trying to go with this, like these platonic solids that he thinks everything is based on. Why do these planets move so erratically? And the only thing that makes sense out of the motions of the planet is when you realize that they're not orbiting the Earth, they're orbiting the sun. And then once you make that account, then those planets' movements are no longer erratic.
Yes, sir. Kepler had no proof of this at all. It was just a theory to him. And if we want to talk about this realistically, we could have another show, but Kepler was a sun worshiper. But we can go back. We don't have to talk about that right now.
Sun
But,
worshiper, because I never heard that.
well, I mean, that's where the whole heliocentric model even comes from.
But why would he have wasted his life striving to do the very opposite of what a sun worshiper would be doing? Why would he have spent his
Well,
entire life on a failed model
it's
that stood
It's a-
against sun worship?
it's a matter of putting the sun at the center. That's the worship itself. Everything that they
How
wrote
is it
about his
worship? If the only way that the movement of the planets makes sense is if they and we are orbiting the sun, then how is that
Right.
worshiping the sun?
Okay. Because the Earth is not a sphere spinning 1,000 miles in space, orbiting the sun 67,000 miles an hour in a galaxy that's going so fast in space.
You didn't understand
And
the
I
question.
walk outside. I do understand the question. It's just a matter of I don't understand how we're missing. Understand your question. The problem that I'm having is I'm supposed to bend my mind to think how I should answer that question. The problem I'm having is you talk about us revolving around the sun. I don't feel any motion at all.
How
I'm
could-
sure that there's a mathematical equation that science has come up with to show that everything around us is moving at 1,000 miles an hour. I don't feel it. I don't see it.
You ever
I
had a
don't
fly loose in your car?
Yeah.
You're going down the road, you're going
Yeah.
70, 80 miles an hour, you got a fly buzzing around.
Yeah.
It does that.
Yeah,
That fly can't fly 80 miles an hour. And even if it could,
No.
he's changing directions. He's going every which because the atmosphere is being carried with it, which is why you don't feel motion. It would
Motion
not be
relative.
possible for you to feel motion. But the question to you was that if Kepler had wasted his entire life pursuing a model
That doesn't.
that was against sun worship, that he's completely against that. He's wasted his entire life to do this other theory and eventually gave up because the only thing that mathematically made sense of the planetary motions was if they're going around the sun. So you said he worships the sun. How can you justify that statement?
I can justify that statement because the Earth is flat. Anybody who puts
That
the sun
doesn't
to try
answer
to
the
prove
question. That doesn't
I have-
answer the question.
here's I have no justification for that at all.
Okay.
It's just me and my crazy mind coming up with stuff as to the reason why people decided to change. They knew that the Earth was flat versus what they have been told in modern
We're gonna
thinking.
need to get into that too. So where did this conspiracy theory come from? Who dreamt it up and why?
Okay. Where it comes from, I'm not quite sure how it all starts. I just know that we're in it.
Okay, so we talked
Yeah.
about last time how early church fathers from like Isaiah on all the way up to the actual clergy up until the time of Columbus himself, many of them were still advocating for a flat earth that whole time. Now, science was coming up with different reasons why the earth was not flat, and the church eventually changed their position on that. But that was after, they jailed people like Galileo for the heresy of saying that the earth moves, which the church didn't recant until 300 years later. As a matter of fact, it was in the 1990s when the Catholic Church finally admitted that he was right and they shouldn't have criminalized him. So where you said that the church was doing this?
Yes.
Okay.
See, everything that you're mentioning to me, everything that you're bringing up to me is on the surface. This is the history that they want us to know. This is the history that they tell us. We get it enough, it starts to become fact from theory. We get it enough to where we start believing the writing on the paper from people who are older than us, who have said they've been there, people who have wrote these things. It's ancient, right? And we just believe that. My thing is that I question. I have to question. I have to, especially when you can tell me that I'm supposed to feel motion. I'm not supposed to feel the motion of the earth spinning at that speed. There's nothing showing anything else besides a sun and the moon in our night sky, unless we get a telescope and we have to peer into the night sky to see everything else.
You can take a
because this has come up before or earlier. Do you want to know why you don't necessarily feel the earth moving, even though it is rotating really quickly?
If you could tell me something other than what he said and what I've heard, which is basically what he said all my entire life.
Well, when you're traveling in a car, you don't necessarily feel the motion until you brake, and then you start to go a little bit forward because you're still going the same speed as the car.
Because you're
going the same speed as the car, so you're also on the earth at the same time, going the same speed as the earth. Have you ever watched the moonrise? Have
you ever thought about how can an airplane land if the earth is spinning 1,000 miles an hour?
Yes,
also keep in mind
that's another thing to bring up. And it says
how is that?
Much of what you currently believe would be alleviated if you spend a little bit more time in the air. For example, on my first flight to Europe, they tell me that my flight's going to leave at 6:30 from the East Coast, and it's going to land at 5:30 in the morning in Dublin. Okay, so I figure I'm going to spend the night on the plane. And then what I think, it's roughly 11:30 at night or whatever, the sun is coming up and we're in Ireland. Because only 5 hours has transpired for me. We've gone through, it's supposed to be a 7-hour flight, and I've gone through 5 time zones. I mean, so it's when I'm thinking it's 11 o'clock at night and I should be getting sleepy, but we're already there. And so then the way back, flying from east to west, it's a much longer time because now you're adding time zones. So it takes even longer to get back. So on a flat earth, I mean, there's no explanation to account for that with a flat earth model.
There's no way to account for the earth spinning 1,000 miles an hour and the airplane's able to land on it.
Yes.
I don't think I'm gonna coin you real quick. I don't think you understand the question. Something is moving 1,000 miles an hour. I was posed this idea from a family member. If you were in a tractor trailer, 18-wheeler, you're in the trailer.
Right.
The 18-wheeler is going 50 miles an hour and you jump. You are going to land in the same spot that you jumped from. That was his thing. My thing is that you are then at that point accountable for the laws of motion. You are going to hit the ground and you are going to be accountable for the laws of motion at that point, and you will have to accept those laws. An airplane does not do that.
But so to fly in your car,
the fly is different in my car. This is another thing.
It's exactly the same thing.
No, it's not.
The same thing. Yes.
No, it's not.
The atmosphere is moving with it. So the fly can land just the same laws that apply to the airplane. That's
I
why
don't
the
think-
airplane can land.
I don't think the laws apply to a fly.
Imagine now.
Let's say a pigeon
Imagine-
tried to land on my car at 50 miles an hour. Would the pigeon be able to land on my car at 50 miles an hour?
Since
A
the
pigeon.
is since the pigeon is outside the car, then it is not being contained by the atmosphere that the car
I'm
is holding.
talking about an airplane which is outside. I'm talking about an airplane which is outside.
When the airplane is outside, just like the fly is in your car.
Inside.
The
The
it's
laws are
inside the
different.
car, and the airplane
laws are
is
different.
inside. Airplane is inside the atmosphere of the Earth. Same exact thing.
Earth is the
You
medium.
put anything on a treadmill that it was stationary at one point. You drop it on that treadmill, the laws of motion are going to take effect.
So it's exactly the same thing, no different at all. When we have the
I
atmosphere,
think the
when we
laws
have-
are different.
No,
able to
the
prove
laws
it.
are not different. So
I
we
believe
were
it
talking
is.
the Coriolis effect before, and you offered no explanation for the Coriolis effect. And now we're talking again about the atmosphere being in motion with the Earth, just like the air in your car is in motion with the car. So the plane lands for the exact same laws, no different than the fly lands inside your car.
I must be completely unreasonable. I can't see how the laws are the same for the fly in the car versus the airplane landing.
Inside the atmosphere that is contained on our planet. Yes, it's exactly the same laws for the same reason. It's just on a different scale.
But it's him. I don't see it.
No.
I understand what you're saying because we're gravity protected magical field that keeps everything perfectly in check. And that's the reason why you're saying your position makes sense is because of gravity.
I hadn't even gotten into gravity. We weren't even talking about gravity yet.
Otherwise, if something is spinning, the laws of motion apply with something was stationary and comes in contact with it. The only way what you're saying makes sense, it has to do with gravity at some point when you start applying mathematical trigonometry and applying it to the atmosphere and the pressure of how the plane is supposed to land versus the motion and the math and all that. That's a lot of deep stuff.
Okay, so when the planet turns,
Right.
and we have mountains, we have trees, we have all of this topography, and we have the air within those mountains and those trees, and everything is going
Yeah.
along with it. So the atmosphere
Okay.
is moving with the Earth. Same
Right.
exact thing as the air in your car is moving with the car. So the plane can land the same way the fly can land. Neither
So-
one of them have the car.
I-
The fly does not have the idea that it's going 80 miles an hour. The fly
I
can't even
think I-
fly at 80 miles an hour.
I think I understand where the problem is. I am trying to fit your understanding with my flat head. Okay. You were trying to fit my understanding, what I was trying to get across to you last time on a flat 2D surface of a flat Earth. We have to kind of open our minds to try to fit each other's ideas to where we can not be back and forth with each other, because I do understand what you're saying. And
Okay.
I think where we're coming across with each other is where I'm trying to, if I was to consider, like I did once before when I was before all this around, I understand everything that you're saying. I really do. Surface, the Earth is not spinning and the plane lands perfectly fine. No problem, because it actually has to slow down. It actually has to slow down to land so it don't go too fast and the wheels fall off or whatever happens to a plane if it tries to land too fast. I've seen crash landings before. Understand how a plane has to slow down to land on the surface that is contained in the atmosphere that is spinning, but it should be able to just land. And I don't see that. But if the Earth is spinning, it makes perfect sense. If the Earth is spinning, you're right.
The flat Earth enthusiast, and he came up with this ludicrous idea that
Oh, it has to be crazy.
he was going to disprove the spherical Earth by going up in a helicopter or similar device and hold still in a hover, which, you know, the Earth was supposed to rotate under him so that he would then just set back down, and he would set back down in France. But of
Mhm.
course, the atmosphere moving with the topography means
Oh,
that
yeah.
he goes up and hovers. He's actually fixing his position around the objects around him so he doesn't move forward.
Sir,
So
the
it's
trip
what?
part is, I wouldn't even think that that would work. To me, you're absolutely right. That's ludicrous. The atmosphere is going to push him away from where he's trying to land. That's common sense.
Right. So that's why the airplane and the fly are exactly the
No,
same, where the laws apply the
no,
same
it's not.
of them.
It's a different something is happening inside the car that makes it different. It's a different law. If I'm looking at the earth as a sphere
Mhm.
and I'm trying to apply that the motion of the car, and if the fly lands on it, it's going the same speed as the car, therefore it can ride the same speed as the car.
Mhm.
I'm trying to apply airplane landing on an airstrip with the same logic you would call it. It makes absolute sense. Perfect
Okay.
sense.
So
But if the earth was flat, give me this opportunity, sir, because you want me to admit that there's times where I have to say that there's other possibilities, and this could be true about a spherical earth. Was flat, could an airplane land on it the same way that it does if the earth is round?
you're asking me, could an airplane land the same way on a flat Earth as on a spherical Earth, on an Earth that doesn't rotate?
Yes.
Okay. There are a number of things that have to be established even to know an answer for that. First of all, what is gravity,
Okay.
or what substitutes for gravity, and how do
Right.
you maintain an atmosphere?
But gravity
Because on a flat
doesn't
Earth,
exist on the flat earth. You got to let that go. We're talking
Well,
about. There is no gravity.
okay, I
So
can't.
you have to let that go in order to.
I can't let that
Well,
go.
I mean,
Because we have weight. We have, things have weight anyway. So then my question
things
was,
do have
what-
weight.
So I asked you.
Right.
So I said that there had to be gravity or something to substitute for gravity. Meaning, you still have to explain how things fall down. And,
Exactly.
right. So you don't have an explanation for that. So
I do. You never asked me that
I
question.
did ask you.
I do. You asked me last time and you asked me to come back with an answer. You never asked me this time. So ask me and let's do this.
Okay, so we are in the Millennium Falcon, and
Mhm.
it's a disc-shaped spaceship, and people walk around. They've got gravity; they drop things and fall to the floor. But when they step outside, suddenly there's no gravity. Now on a
Okay.
flat Earth, well, I guess you're talking about a snow globe Earth. I forgot about the firmament. So the firmament, I guess, is what holds the atmosphere in. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we have this giant
Yes.
dome that nobody can see or verify.
You don't
But-
accept it, but you can see it.
Yeah, I can't. No one can.
Were to walk outside, if you were to walk outside right now, look up at your sky. If you have nothing obstructing your view of this beautiful sky that was created for us,
But it was not created.
you would be able to see the dome. You would be able to see
But yet
the
nobody's
dome. In
dome.
your mind, you've been programmed to think that it must be the way that the earth is round, and that's why it feels that way when you look at it. But that's
So-
not the case.
what you see your dome, and it just looks like there's no dome there.
Right. Exactly.
That's how you see it, is by it not being there.
No, you actually see it bow in front on top of you. You can see it. See, the thing is that it's not something that you can pick up, touch your forehead. There's your microphone. You can touch that with your fingers. It's not like that. Let's use our senses, people.
Okay, so
Everything
where does
is
the,
not-
so the base of this firmament has to connect to the ground somewhere, right?
Somewhere, yeah.
Okay, so where does it connect to the ground?
At the end of the Arctic, which is surrounded us in ice.
So I have friends who have been to the Arctic, and they
Have they been to the edges, the
Antarctica.
far reaches? Have they been to the farthest, deepest parts of Antarctica?
People have, and I've seen
And they have.
is because they're talking about climate change, and they're looking at the way that the ice is melting. So we do have imagery for this. People have been there. And
Been
this is-
there.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
think that they're going where they say they're going because
Oh.
in my mind, there is a part where there is no light and there is a great coldness and a void there. And
can you
that
verify or
void,
show any evidence for this place where there's no light?
can you show and verify any evidence that these people went to the farthest parts of the Arctic
Yes.
like they say they have? I would like to see that,
Okay.
because I don't believe it.
I know that you don't believe that people have circumnavigated Antarctica, but they have.
I do believe that. I just don't believe that it's the way that the shape that it is.
There are other ways to prove it.
Oh.
Yet, right now, I still want to talk about, and there's one other thing I need to throw out there: the word theory.
Oh,
Stop
wait,
using it
wait.
that
We never talked about weight. Let's
Yeah.
stop using gravity the way that it
So
is.
first, since I mentioned theory, I want to explain what a theory is. A
Oh,
theory is
okay,
a
'cause I don't-
body of knowledge. Okay, a theory is a body of knowledge, a field of study that includes hypotheses and facts and natural laws, particular to
So
that
the
body.
laws of Newton wasn't a theory? The laws of gravity from Newton wasn't a theory?
No,
When
the
I say
theory of
theory, I'm
gravity-
talking about
the theory
I'm
of
talking
gravity
about the people who-
includes-
but when I say theory, I'm talking about the people who use their mathematical concepts, and they're a theory. I'm not just using the word theory because I don't know what it means, and it just gets
But you
attached to
implied
everything.
that you said, for example, that Kepler, that was just a theory. Well, it doesn't make sense to say just a theory if a theory is the
Mhm.
highest level of confidence science can achieve. That's not a just
Right.
theory. You know,
I want
in
to
order
see, the thing is
now I want you to
competent science come from people who, go ahead, you can talk. I apologize, I do talk a lot. You can go ahead.
The theory of gravity includes the Newtonian laws. They are within that theory, that field of study. A theory is
Mhm.
not a guess.
Okay.
And I was going to say something else, but I can't remember what it was, so I'm going to let it go. Dalton's model of the atom. Did you get any college?
No, I did not get
Okay.
any college.
Okay, they teach Dalton's model of the atom. They teach a number of models for the atom, and
That's
they're all inaccurate to some degree. But they still have to teach them, even though they know that that's not perfectly what it is, because those models work up to a point. They're capable of doing the stoichiometry that you need to do to make certain equations function. You have to have this model because it functions to a degree. It doesn't cover everything.
Mhm.
Quantum mechanics covers some things that Dalton's model doesn't, and so forth. But so they have to use different models kind of in concert.
Okay.
Just giving you an idea. And so there does have to be an explanation. If you're gonna move from Dalton's model, it's not enough to say that it's inaccurate about this one thing and then throw it out because it still works and you don't have anything to replace it. So like
Mhm.
with Newton, for example, he came up with the laws of motion, and the problem with Newton's theory of gravity was that it couldn't account for the motions of Mercury, for example. However, when Einstein came up with relativity, which is the idea that matter bends the fabric of space-time, his theory was able to make predictions which could then be confirmed. And his could also account for the motions of Mercury. And so that his theory basically, essentially, the theory of gravity turned out to be wrong, and the
Mhm.
theory of relativity replaces it, in a matter of speaking. The Newtonian
Okay.
laws, for the best part, still work, but that's just a comparison there. So on the heliocentric model, there's a number of things that it accounts for that the flat
Yes,
Earth
that is right. Mhm.
the flat Earth so far has not. One of them we talked about last week was the equator. And at that time, you said the equator exists just to be confusing. Do you have an improvement on that answer?
Well, the equator is an area that surrounds, let's do this. On the flat Earth, the sun, as it moves closer to the magnetic north, slows down. As it comes out from the magnetic north, it speeds up. As it starts coming into that middle tropic area, it is the hottest point. So that would be considered a equator, so to speak.
Okay, so when I haven't been into the Arctic Circle that I can remember, but I have been right on the verge of it, and in
Mhm.
places like that, in Norway and Iceland and so forth. there are times when the sun doesn't quite set. You know,
Yes,
and
you're
I've seen
absolutely
it-
right.
I've seen it where the sun barely disappears under the horizon. I mean, it's always low. It's always low in these areas. I mean, when you're in the tropics, which is, the equator is what we're talking about, this tropical region, the sun is directly overhead. And then when you
Right.
get to the poles, depending on whether it's summer or winter, you either
Yes.
have no sun at all, or you have what they experience in Point Barrow. As I said, my dad lived or worked in Point Barrow, the furthest north you could be in the United States and still be on land, because after that it's the Arctic Ocean. And for him, the sun didn't set, and it didn't stay in one place in the sky either. It cruised around the horizon, so you could see the sun. The sun just kept
Yeah.
this huge circle.
Kept moving in a circle. Yeah.
And then with the equator being the hottest place because of, the direct line and everything, you have this
Mhm.
other thing that goes on, which the heliocentric model can explain and flat Earth can.
And it
also.
actually makes sense on the heliocentric model too. for the
The other
solstices.
thing is the solstices and the equinox.
Mhm.
So how does flat Earth account for that?
Actually, they both make sense. So I can't account for it, which is not for me.
Well,
They both make
what-
sense.
What do you mean they both make sense?
The heliocentric model for why the equator is the tilt of the Earth's axis, 66.6 degrees, depending on the solstice.
Mhm.
The way that the Earth is away from the sun or facing the sun would determine those effects that you see that you just mentioned, where the sun is just going around in circle.
Okay, so we have the Earth and
Right.
it's at this angle, and then when it gets to the other side of the sun, it's still at that same angle, but now instead of the southern pole being closer to the sun or more directly lit, it's now the northern pole that is closer to the sun and more directly lit. How does the flat Earth model account for that?
Just like I mentioned to you, actually, as the sun moves closer to the center or the north, the true north that all our magnets point to, it slows down. That's how we get our seasons, and it's actually able to account for the time that
What about
those.
What about in winter?
It's actually the same thing.
But it's the other.
It's the
side.
same thing.
It's
But
the-
if you're looking at it from a sphere point of view, it's the other side. But it's actually not. It's all one side.
okay, so
It's all one
when
side.
when you are in
So when I say in and out, I mean circle goes around, in and out gives us our seasons. As it goes in, it slows down, but it's still going in a circle like this, not a ball. There's a sun here, and we're going around that.
So
That's just
nobody
weird.
goes to Antarctica in the winter because the conditions are too extreme. But
93 degree. What was it? 193 degrees, I believe, is the record for the coldest time that was ever measured out there. That was crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Something
I don't think
extreme like that. It's
I don't
crazy high.
I don't think it could be that cold, but I don't have the numbers.
It's
to figure it
something
out.
like that. I was
Yeah,
like,
I know
wow.
it's crazy temperatures from our perspective, but what you end up with.
Mhm.
You get one of these visiting expeditions where you get to visit Antarctica, you're going to see the same thing that they see in the Arctic Circle, in the Antarctic Circle, where the sun just turns a circle around the horizon.
Right.
So how do you explain that in a flat Earth model?
Because the earth is flat, the sun and the moon are smaller and closer to us than what they say. By that, by design, they're able to rotate around us. As the sun goes into the north of the middle of the sphere of the flat earth, the north, the true north, it slows down.
And you're saying it
If-
does that again in the winter.
In the winter, but we have to understand that the Arctic is surrounding us. So as it comes out, it's actually going around the Arctic the same way it is. It looks like
So it slows down when it gets to the North Pole, and when it gets to the outside disk, now the sun is going crazy fast.
it's going around fast. Yeah.
Okay. And the moon is not connected to that because the moon is showing a different orbit around the Earth.
Moon has its own path. And according to that path is how we've been able to track the moon since ancient times.
So how big is the sun versus the moon?
I have no idea. Let's find out together and really take a trip.
Okay. I took a trip a few months ago to oh, where was this? North Carolina, I think it was, to see a solar eclipse, a full-on
Right.
solar
Ooh, those are interesting.
Yeah. How does a flat Earth model account for a solar eclipse?
I will tell you that my opinion about a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, what have you, it's going to be
Well, but there's
a
different
little different.
explanations for both of them. And I wish I'd saved this image. Oh, there's this funny image here, the flat Earth view of a lunar eclipse, where you see the disk of the world instead of course, what you always see is the whole curvature. You know, the where
Mhm.
the moon goes between, or the Earth is between the moon and the sun, so the shadow of the Earth is on the moon.
Okay.
So how does that happen?
I don't know. You have to explain that one to me because that
Okay, I
doesn't
just
make
did.
sense to me.
I just
But
did.
no, what doesn't make sense is that the Earth isn't round to give a shadow off of a moon,
and yet
but
you
it's
have
not
the proof
though.
that it is. So
Do
you've
you-
got the
but
sun.
see, but
and
this
around-
is the thing though. This is the thing. You have no proof that the moon or the sun or the earth have anything to do with each other because NASA has not had the time to take in the billions of dollars that they have to give us an opportunity to see an eclipse from space. Getting your airplane. We can all get in an
Yeah.
airplane.
Yes, we have.
We have? I don't.
Yes.
Oh,
And
sir,
I also
if there's
didn't have-
any footage from
also-
space, I would like to see it.
I also didn't.
I would like to see.
I also didn't need NASA to show me a
Mm-hmm.
lunar eclipse. I could see lunar eclipse, and then I could see a solar eclipse. The explanation for either one is you have the sun, the
Mhm.
Earth is going around the sun, and the moon is going around the Earth.
Man, I know that. They told us that in school.
Right. And so at some point, the moon ends up behind the Earth from the perspective of the sun, so that the Earth.
And you're still explaining it.
So yes, and so the Earth's shadow is on the moon. Then I asked, how does the flat Earth model explain that? And you said I didn't explain that, but I did. That was the explanation.
See, but that's the explanation that was given to you. And you trust it, you believe it. At some points, you even feel like you've witnessed that happen.
Yeah.
I've seen an eclipse, a lunar and a solar.
Mhm.
Now that I have a different perspectives on things, I have to kind of question what I see.
Well, then
And what I
please
actually,
give me that explanation.
what I see is all based off of something that I believe how even how the moon phases itself because it's programmed to, it's designed to. The sun is going to do the same in a sense to where there's video footage that caused me to question other disks in the disc-shaped objects in the sky around the eclipse itself. I would to look at some video footage that shows other objects in the sky during an eclipse that could actually show another object in front of the sun or the moon during their eclipses. It's a big mystery to me. So that's why I can't say definitively anything is.
Okay, so we have an
You have
explanation.
definitive.
We have an explanation
That's-
provided by
that's
the
my
heliocentric model that explains
Yeah.
both the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse. And what you're telling
Okay.
me is that the flat Earth model has no explanation that can account for either of these things.
I will tell you that the flat earth model, if there's an explanation for it, I have not seen one that I can honestly say is a true definite reason for something. It's not like I can say the flat earth model for the eclipse is definite proof of what an eclipse is. But I can say that if I was on a shoreline, and you probably have something against this, but I really want to test it. If anything, if I'm on a shoreline, which I've been on a beach before, I've been on a beach before. I remember as a child, my daddy had a pair of binoculars. He told me to be careful with them. They were really good binoculars, and he didn't want me to mess them up. I was a kid, of course. I remember seeing ships disappear in the distance.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that. I will never forget it. And I've seen it since I was a child and never even questioned as an adult, remembering with my mind that I took my daddy binoculars and zoomed in and saw those ships in the distance with my binoculars. Binoculars have a curvature lens built in to kind of get me to see the entire ship and not just
You're saying
I would see.
binoculars have a curvature, meaning they when
No,
you
I'm not
point,
saying that.
when you
I'm not
watch-
saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I don't mean
What
to
I'm saying is,
but I went. We have a guest here. This is Andrew. Andrew Skagg.
Yeah. My friend Andrew Skagg is in Brisbane, Australia.
hey, Andrew.
Yeah.
And
They're
one of-
currently
they keep asking what Gensho's YouTube channel name is.
I don't have a YouTube channel name.
Oh, okay. I thought you had a YouTube channel.
so
Should I have
Andrew,
one?
What time is it in Brisbane right now?
Well, first of all, can you hear me?
Yeah, I
This
can.
is what, okay, good. Just one first test of technology. It's currently 9:45 here in the morning.
Yeah.
That's
Okay, good morning.
we call it Tuesday morning.
So it's Monday night for me. The sun has just gone down. And where Ali is, he's in Arizona. The sun has not gone down yet. And where you are, the sun has gone completely down and come back up again on the next day. So it's tomorrow for you.
Yeah, it's actually sunrise is about 5 o'clock at the moment today, and it sets around 6:45. So we get around 13 hours of daylight this time of year.
I so envy where you live. Look at the backdrop this guy's got. Look at it.
The gum trees in the background.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's beautiful. That is beautiful.
It's a bit overcast today. I'm sorry about that.
So Ali,
Yes.
we were talking about how Newton's theory failed
Yes,
because
sir.
it couldn't account for the
Everything.
the eccentricities of Mercury's orbit, which relativity could do. So in that failure, the theory is flawed because it can't account for that, and so you need to make that improvement. This is where the flat Earth model has failed to account for something demonstrable, which
Is what?
the heliocentric model can account for.
See, and that's why, as much as we want to disprove anything that has to do with anything spiritual or how we were created or anything like
I'm not
that,
talking about anything spiritual.
but we can't. I'm not talking about anything spiritual. If we can take that there's a spiritual element, a religious element out of everything, we would be able to get down to some very basic truths about where we live and where we come from and our purpose here. If we can strip bare of everything and really take a look around and get our senses back in check with everything that's around us, we would be able to have a better opportunity to either think more clearly, see more clearly, and also be able to do things in the earth that is unbelievable and never heard of before.
Okay, so
I'd say that during an eclipse has nothing to do with the flat earth model at all. This is just me. I can't speak for all flat earthers. I am not speaking for all flat earthers. This is Ali. This is my frame of mind. This is who's speaking on behalf of himself.
Okay, so
It's me.
you're going to use a model that okay, for whatever reason, whichever model you've chosen. Okay, we're going to show that there is no model for the flat Earth, none, that can account for the things we've just mentioned.
Okay.
For the sun going around the Skegg, you lived in Tasmania.
Yes.
I don't know. Tasmania is not quite close enough to the Antarctic, I don't think, to see this. But do you ever get that thing that we get in the far northern climes, like in Iceland and Norway and such, where the sun
aurora?
never quite sets or just barely goes?
No, no, we're not quite south enough for that. We're actually a fair way north, so the sun does set. However, I can tell you we're at about the same longitude here in Brisbane as Hobart. And even at this time of year, we get another hour of daylight in Hobart than we do here in Brisbane. So the days are longer the further south you go, but the sun still does set.
So, Ali, that it is the same thing in the South Pole as it is
Mhm.
in the North Pole. Is it Antarctic versus Arctic, where the days are longer in the winter?
Well, if you're on the outer parts of the flat Earth model, which is a disk, not a 2D, okay, it's going to take longer for the sun to go around the outer than it would as it starts to get closer into the middle.
But that
But the way that everything,
explain.
but
That doesn't explain why the days are longer on the southern climb and shorter in the northern climb.
Can I ask you a question, Ali?
What's that?
Just how long are the days there at the moment? How much daylight do you get?
Oh, I haven't even
So-
measured.
so-
I haven't even. I think the sun comes up around 7, and it's only like 5:40 or 5:30 was when the sun went down here. 5:40, I think.
So what's that? 10 hours or?
Yeah,
I don't even
something. Yeah. And then
Okay,
we're
I'm gonna-
going up to Iceland. They're saying some parts of Iceland will only get 4 hours of daylight.
Yeah, because the sun's down on this side.
Right. Whereas if the world was a disk,
Well, this is what I'm getting to. If the sun's doing a circle near the inside of the disk, if I'm understanding this correctly, then surely the days would be the same amount of time across the globe
it
at
would.
the same time.
it
and if
depends
it's
on
the
how fast the sun is moving.
But it
Okay,
wouldn't
so
matter
it's
because there would
changing
never be-
speed.
One of the
It's-
things that the flat Earth model can't account for is the fact that the sun sets at all.
But to our perspective, it sets. I would
Right,
like
but-
to
but
track
the flat Earth model
I would
can't
like
account for
to
that
tr-
because if you're talking about that, you have that the Antarctic, instead of being an island continent in the South Pole, you're proposing that the Antarctic is actually this rim that goes all the way around the planet, right?
Yes.
So, and that on this rim
The-
is where the basis of your foundation lies. So you're telling me that the sun has to somehow set in Antarctica. It can't get outside the firmament. It's inside the firmament.
Mhm.
And yet it has to set under Antarctica. It has to land on solid ground and then go through the solid ground in order to set. And then reappear on the other side of the world in the equal time.
Mhm.
So how does that happen?
That doesn't happen because that doesn't even make sense.
Right, but that's the flat Earth model.
I don't understand where anything goes through the ground. You
Okay,
completely
if-
lost me there.
I'll say it again.
Because the
If
sun doesn't
Antarctica-
set,
Okay, if Antarctica,
like you said, because there's parts of the south, like you were mentioning, where you can actually see the sun go around you.
in the
Video.
what would be their summer.
Right. You can see the sun going around you. So the thing is that the sun doesn't set. All the sun does is give order to the light that day is. So you can think it's daylight. It doesn't necessarily mean that the sun is there.
So when we look at it, we watch the sun dip, like if we were sitting on the beach, we watch the sun rise, it comes up from below the ocean line, and we watch the sun.
The horizon line, which is a flat line. Let's say horizon line.
Okay, the ocean horizon, we see it dip under that. Now, if you want to propose
Mhm.
that Antarctica is a ring around a disk world, then your sun has to land in Antarctica in order to completely disappear from view. In
Right.
order to
See,
set. But then
but you would have to argue that point with someone who would think that the sun dips behind the horizon line. I don't think that it does.
every day of
So
your
it's
life,
not going to
you can
make
watch
sense to
that.
me.
Every day of your life, you can go.
Yeah,
watch
you're right, and it's fantastic. I can
And-
really
and
see it,
so-
especially over by here in Arizona.
Okay, so when you get to an ocean, you actually can
Mhm.
see the sun dip below the horizon.
I can, yeah,
Just like you can watch ships dip below the horizon.
right. Right, but with a binoculars,
honest-
easily anybody with a pair of binoculars can zoom in and see the entire ship.
No, you can't.
The entire ship.
No, you can't.
What
And
you
there's
mean
a
you
number-
can't? Oh, you're
I
gonna
mean
have
you
to
can't.
show.
I mean that
You're
you
gonna
literally
show.
cannot do that. There are places.
You're gonna have to
if you're
show
on a
me,
ship-
man.
If you're on a ship, you can see when you approach like cities with towers, for example, you can see the top of the
Mhm.
tower, but not the bottom
Right.
of the tower. And I wish we could just take a cruise so we can show you the top of the tower, and then you can get whatever binoculars
wish.
you think there ever have been. You will
Right.
not be able to see the bottom. There's no binoculars that can make you see the bottom of that tower. Just like there's no
Okay.
binoculars that can make you see the whole ship after it goes under the horizon. And then I'm sure you've seen the images, like Lake Pontchartrain in Louisiana has a series of power lines crossing the entire thing, and you can actually watch the curve of the power lines.
Right. I've crossed Lake Pontchartrain. I'm from New Orleans. Lower Ninth Ward is where I was born and raised.
Mhm.
And that, I tell you, sir, that bridge is flat as a pancake, sir. Flat, 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 flat,
Yes.
long as
Yeah.
miles as it can go. Just like the 10 longest rivers in the world are just long that
And
have no
yet-
curvature at all. I'm
and
really
yet-
trying
yet-
to understand.
And yet, standing on one side, you can't see the other side, because what you do see,
We only can see 5 miles in front of us, though. We can
Okay,
only
why is-
see up to 5 miles in front of us
Why
with
is
good
that?
eyesight as human beings. Well, we
Why
have
can we see the
vantage.
moon?
We have. That's because it's closer than 238,000 miles away.
if it's more than 5
That's
miles
why.
away, you can't see it.
But that's the beautiful thing about what the moon is,
Is
and
the
that's
moon
why you know you can't
5
land on it.
Is the
Listen,
moon
there's no
more than
way
5
I could.
miles away?
Let's say it's what?
How far away is the moon?
I don't know. Let's truly find out and try to figure this out because it's
Okay.
not 238,000 miles away. I
Right.
am not going
Is
to
it
accept
more
that number.
than 5 miles away?
I did watch ships go over the horizon as a child. I
Okay.
have.
Is the moon more than 5 miles away?
I would probably have to think so, yeah,
Okay, how can you see it?
because it has great definition, clarity, and it was made for us to be seen.
But you said
It's not. There's a
you
lot of
can
stuff that's
only
not really
see-
so complicated.
You said humans can only see 5 miles.
If we're looking as far as the horizon and stuff goes, that's what I'm talking about. When it
If
comes
there-
to
if
the
there's a curve
moon
of the
or
Earth,
the sun, if
you can
we're,
only see-
but we're not talking.
Okay. But if there's a curve of the earth, we can only see to the curve of the earth. But if it's not having to do with the curve of the earth, then we can see as far as we need to. For however
I
many
thought it-
miles we need to look.
Of what Arm was talking about, like the Lake Pontchartrain power lines, and you can see the curvature in this picture.
Can you show me the picture?
Oh,
Can
can you
share
see
your
it?
screen?
Okay, let me. Okay, sure. Okay. Can you see it now?
Oh my gosh!
Can you see it?
Now you've seen that
Oh,
with
I
your
can.
own
I
eyes.
can see it. I can see it, and that's the math that they show the curvature and they show the flat. Is that the math on the left side there, on the bottom left corner? I see right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now-
you've seen that structure with your own eyes. Yes.
Mhm. I see it.
Okay. So you can't see the other side. And it's not
Okay,
because
this
it's
is-
more than 5 miles away, because if we can see the moon, then we can see more than 5 miles away.
This is what I will say, and I will say this every time. When I see a picture like that, I want to know why it's curving because it shouldn't. It begs my
What
mind
about
to
when
have
you
that
saw it
question.
with your own eyes. Was that before?
I
you
didn't
were-
see that. I didn't see it. There
it
was no.
before you were a
there was
flat
no.
earther? The last time you saw Lake Pontchartrain, was that before you were a flat earther?
Yes.
Okay. I would wish that you could go back. Do you have family you can go visit? And then you can take your own
Mhm.
picture. And we can do
Okay.
the same thing from any seaport. I mean, really, any of them.
With any bridge, because I've
No,
seen
not any bridge.
bridges. I've
I can
seen.
show you a bridge that's only 5 feet across. You're not going to see it on a 5 feet across bridge. But as I said, any seaport, you can watch the ships dip under the horizon. No binocular ever made will show you the whole ship. That's not possible.
I got two questions.
Yes.
Earlier you said you saw ships disappear over the horizon, and then you said I just wonder what you mean by over the horizon.
Who's the question for?
Yeah, for you.
Oh, over the horizon.
Yeah,
There's a
what
line. As far as, because I mean, if it's a curvature, I'm just trying to stick with the curvature, isn't it? Over, what is that? What you guys call it? What do you call it when it goes over the curvature? What's that called?
It's still an horizon.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's where
So
the
where
sky
does-
meets the land or the sea.
So what's the horizon? I mean, you guys are asking me some questions. I want to ask you some questions. What's the definition of a horizon?
It's the lowest point that you can see. It's the horizontal.
It's the
plane.
lowest
It's-
point.
it's
A horizontal plane is a horizon. Is there a way to use the word that you're
Well, it-
defining as the word? I don't know if you could do that.
But I think at the most
Yeah.
simplest, it's where the sky meets the land or the sea.
Okay. I can get a pair of binoculars and zoom in and see what's supposedly disappeared under
Yeah, I'd like to
over
see you
the side of the
perform that
curvature.
experiment.
I'm not.
All right.
Did-
You
did-
live in Arizona,
I-
so you don't have an ocean near you. But if you ever
Okay,
get,
no.
if you ever get to a place that has an ocean near you, I want to see
Like Jacksonville Beach,
Exactly, any beach.
right?
We-
Because
we
I've
can-
lived there for more than 20 years, and I've been to that
But
beach plenty of
Will
times. So
not be able to demonstrate what you just said.
okay, you and I, we can bring whomever we need to bring. Let's prove this stuff, Aaron. Let's
Okay,
prove this stuff.
We already have.
I have no
I'm
problem
saying,
with that.
yeah,
no,
we'll do
no,
that.
no.
On that-
You have not seen these things outside of having a bias
I don't have a bias.
that the world is
I don't
round.
have a bias. The scientific method eliminates or minimizes bias. That's the whole goal of it, because we don't want to be.
I must be completely out of my mind to disassociate myself somewhat, because a lot of the science is true, but some of it doesn't make sense. I can't account for the stuff that makes sense. The stuff I can't account for the stuff that doesn't make sense to me.
All right.
The math is going to be right,
I want to say something.
but it just doesn't make sense.
All right. You said we could bring someone, and we could show you the evidence for the spherical Earth. I want to ask Andrew first. I have two questions for Andrew.
Just like Andrew.
They're asking the chat who you are. Can you talk about what you do? And you had a YouTube channel too, pretty popular.
I used to. Well, I don't know about very popular. I think Aaron clips me there. But yeah, I used to have a YouTube channel, 5-7 years ago or something like that, dealing with skeptical issues, atheism, religion, those kind of topics. And that's where Aaron and I met. Since then, I'm a health and safety consultant here in Brisbane. I have been for many years, loving it. And I'm not an expert in these matters, but I will ask questions, and I'm intrigued with his point of view. I just wonder how he explains some of the things that Aaron is raising.
Yeah.
My question for Andrew, second question, is
Yeah.
What's the temperature over there, Andrew, in Brisbane?
It's pretty warm at the moment. So yesterday was about 33 degrees Celsius. That is, it's currently 28, and we're heading for about 30. I'm not quite sure what that is in Fahrenheit.
Here in Texas, we're -3 Celsius, and
I heard you're in a bit of a cold snap at the moment.
we are. So what season are you in Brisbane?
It's summer.
It's summer, but we're having winter here, and I think it's winter in Arizona too. Now, how would a flat Earth model explain the differences in the seasons in different hemispheres? Is my question for you, Gensho.
In different atmospheres?
No,
Hemispheres.
hemispheres.
Hemispheres don't exist in your model, and yet they're
Got
made
it.
evident by the seasons. So how do you
See,
account
but
for that?
this,
Which is a reflection of the it's a reflection of the daylight hours. So we're getting more sun here. I'm getting 13 hours of daylight each day here at the moment. And because we're getting more sun, the temperature's higher than it is at other times of the year. You're getting short days, so it's cooler, basically.
And the spherical Earth explains this, that the Earth at times tilts on its axis. So he's getting more direct sunlight than we are currently.
Well, it always is on the
Yeah.
axis. It's relative to its position against the sun, whether the
It's against the sun.
Yeah.
is
Right.
closer to the sun
I-
or the southern hemisphere is.
Yeah.
I have a question that I want to everyone who is watching this show and everyone who is here. You get me to believe in the science that I've been taught all of my life and that you guys know oh so well. Your scientists are losing their minds. Neil deGrasse Tyson has said that the earth is pear-shaped. He doesn't know, science doesn't know what gravity is. They don't know how to measure it. They don't know they just know how it kind of basically works. They understand the principle of it.
Right.
I don't understand why I am supposed to believe any of that. Just because 2 + 2 = 4, then all of a sudden you skip the trigonometry and I'm supposed to understand that, let alone believe it and trust in it.
Do you believe it's summer in
have-
Australia and winter in the
If
North?
I told you no, would that surprise you? I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I would think that
it's summer.
telling me that it's summer in Australia, it's summer in Australia.
Mhm.
And
If it's winter here, it's winter here. I'm not disproving anything
Okay.
that's
You
not
understand-
proven right in front of us, guys.
Okay.
What
You
I'm
understand
begging
that
to
Andrew
question
Skegg- you understand that Andrew Skegg is in tomorrow for us.
in the relative to time and how the days are and how we measure that. I understand that.
But this is another
But-
thing that the flat Earth model can't account for.
Can you
See,
explain
there's-
how that happens in the flat Earth model? How it can be summer in Australia and winter in North America?
How it could be tomorrow in Brisbane,
Mhm.
and how can it be Tuesday in Brisbane and Monday in Arizona?
I'll tell you this. If you guys are looking for an explanation from me, I don't have that explanation.
Okay.
Now, should I have that explanation? I don't even know. Once again, this is just me. I could look it up and try to figure it out for you guys, and we can test it and we could try to figure it out together.
Right. I understand and I appreciate what you're
Okay.
saying, but it's
But
not
I'm
just
really this is what I
you. No, but it really is. It's not
for
just you.
some
There is no flat Earth model that can account for all these things.
that's because there's a reason for that, sir. There's a reason for it.
The reason
But
is
we're
that
not-
it's wrong.
No, that's not the reason for it. That's not the reason for it.
Okay.
We can't talk about the reason for it.
What
We can't
I can
talk about it.
anything I
Why
want.
not?
What can we
But-
talk about?
You can, but it doesn't fit the topic at hand. We're talking about why I believe the flat earth versus documented proof that it's round. That's what we're talking about, right?
Well, then tell me that.
Have experienced warmer temperature in the shade of the moonlight versus walking out into the moonlight itself. How come the shade of the moonlight is warmer than the actual moonlight itself?
I can.
Because the shade
I can
in the
imagine
sun,
that
the shade from the sun is actually cooler
the shade
than
from
walking
the
out into
sun-
the sunlight. The shade, if you were to get under an umbrella,
Uh-huh.
it's hot outside. Hey, I need to cool off. Let me get underneath this umbrella to
I
cool
can't
off from the
explain-
sun.
I can't explain a fact that was never demonstrated to be a fact. We would
What-
need to
what you
actually
mean?
Show, well, how many degrees is the shade
Well-
of the sun versus the shade of the moon? Or if
If
say-
you are at, well,
okay,
let's
how many
do
different- How
that.
many degrees different in which
Mhm.
which metric? What Celsius, Fahrenheit? What's the difference between the moon shade versus moonlight in temperature? And how do we know that this isn't just fluctuations in the breeze?
Or how do we know that the sun is actually reflecting its light off of the moon?
Because we can see
Because
it,
if
and it's demonstrated by eclipses, both solar and lunar.
I believe, and I have no way to absolutely prove this,
Okay.
and I have the right to actually believe what I want, guys. This is amazing to be a human being, and I can believe whatever I
have the
want.
right to be wrong. No one
I
denies
believe.
you.
No,
No one
see,
denies
but it's not a belief. Is not so matter of much of being right or wrong. It's a matter of what that person believes.
It is. When it's a matter of demonstrable fact, it is.
See, but who is the person casting judgment on someone who believes whatever they want? Judgment. You can't look at somebody and be like, what you believe is wrong.
I'm sorry, but I can't.
Because you believe it.
Yeah,
you can't do that.
I can show that a belief is wrong, and opinions can be wrong too.
So you could be wrong. Are you fair to put yourself in that
I have
situation?
got to be wrong about something somewhere. Everybody's got to be
right.
We understand. This is how science works. Is the only way that you can improve understanding is to find the flaws in your current perception and correct them.
Right.
Now, there's a number of things, as like I said, that you have these comparative models. You have the heliocentric model, which actually does explain all of the things we were just talking about: the Coriolis effect, the equinoxes and the solstices, the why it's hotter around the equator, and so forth. All of these things are accounted for, and the flat Earth model can explain none of them, not one bit of it. And that's important because that means that model has failed. Not just your model personally. Everybody's flat Earth model fails the moment there's an eclipse.
I don't. I don't.
So how
agree
does an eclipse happen? If you see the shadow of the Earth on the moon, what if that's not the shadow of the Earth? What the hell else could it be? And how do they predict it in advance? Because you can predict these years in advance. How does that happen?
Oh yeah, there's an eclipse coming up that's going right over Sydney that happens in 2028. I intend to be there for it. Total eclipse.
I'm fortunate enough that I live in Dallas, and in a couple of years we're going to have a full-on solar eclipse right over my house. So
I would have loved to have been there earlier last year, where the eclipse went over the states.
Yeah,
no, a spectacular sight.
Neither of these, neither the solar eclipse nor the lunar eclipse, are possible in a flat Earth model. It's not just that the flat Earth model can't explain them; they're not possible at all. So that model has failed, but that's not the ultimate proof. As I said, much of this could be resolved just if you'd done a bit more flying.
I don't see how. This is my thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me that I should do more flying. I could spend as much time in this area if you think that I should in order to be proved that the Earth is round. It's not going to prove it to me.
Okay, but here's one way to prove it.
That we are missing.
Yeah, here's a way to prove it. Because I told you
go ahead.
There are ways to prove it. When you fly, generally on average, I mean, it's usually a little bit over 500 miles an hour. I've actually flown a little over 600 miles an hour, but the average is, around 550, something like that. And then you have the slowdown period so that on relatively shorter, within a continental flight, it works out as an average of 500 miles an hour. So that if you're flying 1,000 miles, it's going to be a 2-hour flight. If you're flying 1,500 miles, it's going to be a 3-hour flight. Makes sense? You follow me?
Sir, I'm trying to get you to understand. You don't have to talk to me about this stuff. Okay, I do understand. I would much rather you assume that I understand most things and not assume that I don't just because I believe the way I believe.
I asked you the question to make sure that you
but
follow.
I've been asked if I've ever been on a beach. I've been asked if I've ever done this. I've been asked if I've ever seen that. Like, up until I was 40 years old before I got to speak to you and this flat earther guy coming out of the cave. That's not what's happening.
I don't.
The thing that's not what's happening is what you think is happening. I'm not making assumptions. I'm asking questions so that I don't make assumptions. That's the reason for asking the question. And then I need to make sure that I'm not just throwing out numbers. I want to make sure that you agree that estimate is correct.
Yeah, I would have to agree that the estimate is correct.
Okay. So if you want to get onto like Travelocity or whatever booking line you want to do, there's a way to look for flights where you can get the shortest duration of a single flight. Okay. And I looked up a number of these, and I compared the flat Earth map versus the globe, and to show how long it takes to fly to places. So like, on a globe, and I need to show this image. Give me just a minute so I can share this, because this is going to matter. Where's my share button?
It's going to matter to the people it matters to. Go ahead.
And it's going to matter to everybody.
Does the truth matter to you though?
See, if you're going to try to prove to me that a flight from here, from point A to point B, is supposed to take this long based upon the map and how it's supposed to be, I'm not trying to disprove that. I'm not trying to say that this flight from here can't end up here in this amount of time. I'm not trying to say that the flat Earth model that we have proves everything at all.
Okay.
Ali is trying to tell you that my observations. No, I can see your screen.
You see the image on the screen here?
I see the red line across the globe Earth there.
Okay. All right. So we have a flight going from Sydney to Johannesburg, and it goes very close to Antarctica. This is the shortest route that I can come up with, and this is on a spherical Earth, obviously. And so I'm going to drop out of sharing. And, I'm going to have to let these dogs in. I'm sorry to have to interrupt this, but my dogs.
Andrew had a question, so maybe you could ask it now. What was your question? Did you get?
Oh, the question I asked earlier. Well, there are things we can do, Jen. So you're asking, there's experiments we can do together to see what the facts are. And I'm fully on board with it. I think we should.
I think we should.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the temperature difference between the moon light and the moon shade earlier.
Yes. What is that about?
Well, I don't know if it's a real thing, but that's something we can actually test.
This is something that I figured out. So the other night, I want to say it was Saturday night. The moon is directly over where I am here in Arizona, in Maricopa, Arizona. And I got to see the moon finish the phase that it was in to become a full moon, is what it seemed to me. So it shone brighter. It was beautiful. The thing that I noticed before that, when I walked outside, is that I had on a short sleeve shirt on, and I was like, "Oh, it's not bad out here. It's fine. It's a little breezy." Then I got out into the yard, out of the shade, and I was like, man, I need to put a jacket on. Oh, man, it is freezing out here. So it really kind of caught me, like, why is the moon shade warmer?
So
that's interesting.
I get you. So that's an experiential thing, something you experienced.
Yes.
Can you do me a favor? Next time there's a full moon, take a thermometer out with you. So you're not relying on your senses and how you feel about the situation. You've actually got an objective measure. Take a temperature in the shade where you were, and go into the moonlight and take another temperature reading, and see if there's any difference. But I'd be interested to see, I'd be interested to see what the results are and what you think about those results.
Well, what also would be interesting is if I did the experiment here and you did it where you are, to see if there's a temperature difference there too. Because I believe that even though that there aren't any hemispheres, something is affecting the way, and I think it has something to do with the ions in the air or something, but something is affecting the way the light hits us and the way that the light temperature is different. Because in my mind, if the sun is reflecting its hot ass temperatures off of the moon, it would be warmer in the sun, in the moonlight, and even warmer moon shade. But I didn't get that effect. So the temperature with the thermometers would definitely.
I'm happy to run that experiment, and I think we can exchange contact details, and I'm happy to do that.
Great.
That'd be a good idea. And I think every time we come across a situation where we can actually put something to the test and use some sort of objective measure, then we should do so, and then we should take those results as being true and accurate, and work out the best model that explains all of those things that we see.
And it's going to be
And
a lot of.
I'm on board with you right there.
It's going to be a lot of questions. I just have a lot of questions. I've observed a lot. I've seen a lot of stuff from a lot of different people. And just so you guys could know that I'm not just believing everything that I see on YouTube. There's people who believe the same way that I believe, which is there is a true magnetic north. There is a north, and our compass travels there. The only thing is that's different is that there's this blood over intent, this blood magic that they're using. And it's like, yo, just be careful of everything that you watch when it comes to flat earth, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on with flat earth that has a lot of spiritual aspects to it. And if you're not careful and have that spirit of discernment, you may end up getting pulled into some crazy stuff. I've seen a lot of stuff as far as this flat earth goes.
All right, you're talking to a bunch of atheists who do not believe in spirits.
I'll keep that.
These are people who, hey, I'm just talking about what I've seen, and I'm just like, whoa.
Okay, so
I wanted to know what they were talking about.
The image I showed you a moment ago, the flight path from Sydney to Johannesburg, right? That was on a globe. Okay. That if you try to book a flight like that, Sydney, Johannesburg, I think it comes up to 11,000 miles, a little bit more. And it takes about 14 hours. Now, by the average that I said, which would be 500 miles an hour, for every hour, that would be for your continental flights, but oceanic flights, it throws the average off a little bit. So I was off of my estimate by 1 hour. I would have said it would have been actually 13 hours by the average, but it actually works out to being 14 hours. Now we have to look at another image, which is the same flight, but on your map. And I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, come on, share, and give me that image. And let's see if I can go full screen with it. All right, hopefully you guys can see that. Now, notice that Australia is twice as wide on your map as it is in real life. So that it would take roughly 5 hours to make a flight across Australia from Sydney to Perth. But on your map, the mileage, like I said, is over twice as far. But that doesn't actually happen, of course. People will book their flights. It is actually 5 hours and not the 12 hours that it would have to be on your map. And the flight, the flight that we mentioned before, and I'm going to have to pull up the data because so stop sharing the screen for a moment. Just yeah, I wish I could show all these things at the same time, but I do need to.
And while he's pulling up the data, for the people who's listening who are good at the whole travel thing, because I've seen videos where people are doing the distance from here to there. There are no flights for the Southern Hemisphere. Pay attention to what he's saying. I can only speculate as what it could be. Numbers a lot better than I do. If you guys are paying attention, please leave those comments where we can see, maybe ask a question or something, because I can say that that's not something that I'm relatively familiar with.
Okay, but this is important. The flight.
No, yeah, I agree. Everything's important.
The flight from Sydney to Johannesburg on your map would be 23,000 miles, 23,419 kilometers. I'm sorry, that would be 14,551.9 miles, and would take a flight time of 28 hours. That is longer than any commercial liner can fly. No plane we make for passengers can stay in the air that long.
Wow.
So what really happens when anybody books a flight from Sydney to Johannesburg, it's a 14-hour flight on the shortest duration, not 28 hours, which it would have to be on your map. I've flown from Skeg. Did we fly from Melbourne to Perth, or did we fly from? Oh, you weren't with us on that flight, so I don't.
I didn't on that leg, but when you came down here, you flew into Sydney, and then we went to Brisbane, and then down to Melbourne, then you shot across to Perth. And I've done that flight as well before going across New Zealand.
So roughly 5 hours, right?
It's a 5-hour flight
Yeah.
heading west. It's slightly shorter coming back the other way because you've got some tailwinds.
But if you look at the map that the flat earthers are using, to spread it all out on a disk, and they say that the distances are the same as they are in real life, but the projection shows completely different. So that Australia is now twice, so that the 5-hour flight becomes a 12-hour flight on his map. But it's obviously in real life, it's not 12 hours. So we know the flat earth model is wrong. This is not a guess. This is not a bias. This is not a belief. We know the flat earth model is wrong. And the way that we prove that it's wrong is by showing that it is only a 5-hour flight across Australia, not 12.
It's certainly one way to do it. And it's actually, you could do that with a number of flights. And these are all flights that you can take. We can all book these flights and take these to verify that the flight time is actually correct. But you could take any city, say London, and say, well, okay, the flight time to Rome is X amount of hours or this much distance. And from Rome to Bangkok, and you could draw all these places and link them together with the right size lines, and you'd find that it meshes into a globe.
So the only way,
and not a sphere.
Yeah. So that
and
having
these
that
are all
flight,
flights that you could take to verify. So I'm wondering how. And this is just one data point, but how does the flat Earth model account for that?
Do you guys hear the question? Out there watching this YouTube right now, the question is, how do we figure out the difference from a flat Earth model versus a globe when it comes into the times it takes to get to places on the Earth versus the flat Earth model? Once again, that's not something that I can really say that's my forte. My thing is where I'm on the ground. I'm looking around me. I'm tuned in to what's going on around me. And per my observations, because I'm not all over the world, I'm on the ground. I'm looking around me and I have questions.
But
tend to more fit a flat Earth model than it does a heliocentric model. That's basically what this all is.
Okay, but you understand. I'm sorry, Andrew, just a moment. You understand that to make a 14-hour flight from Sydney to Johannesburg, which people do 6 days a week, is only possible on a globe. It is not possible to do what people do every day on the flat Earth model.
Okay, this is my challenge, because I know that there's an explanation for it. Now, just to say that definitively, because of your position and your belief, sir, which to prove yours, but we are talking about, we have to talk about beliefs, because what you see is what I see. I just believe I see something differently.
I wouldn't argue that.
Can I ask a question, Gensho?
Belief.
So do you believe that the information the airline companies give out is accurate?
I believe that there has to be some discrepancy there, simply because being flat and the way that the flights are, there's something going on there. I can't figure it out. All of this stuff looked at in front of me so that I can figure out the whole flight thing. I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong, Mr. Ra. Not at all. I understand the flight patterns, the time it takes to get from A to B, all the things that could come into contact and happen with that. Well, I get that. But what's the other side of it?
It seems to me that there's
the other belief, sir. The other belief, sir.
Okay, we have.
That's the other side. Regardless of you saying that there's no belief, people believe, regardless of you saying that there's shouldn't be no belief, or belief shouldn't have anything to do with it, or whatever.
Okay, belief has a different context very often with religious believers than with unbelievers, because what I believe is a logical consequence of my understanding of the facts, and my position will
Me
obligate
too.
to change if you show me that I'm wrong. You have demonstrated and stated that that is not the case for you. As a matter of fact, you just said that you know there is an
Okay.
explanation, but you can't produce an explanation, so you can't.
Not me,
if
no,
there is
myself.
one.
So let me go
But
see,
you
because
can't
I've seen
know.
people. This is my thing. No, sir. Take the flight patterns and the flight paths and the time it takes to get there and here and there. Those people are good at that stuff. That's what they do. That's a part of their whole presentation of how they prove the earth is flat based upon the evidence that they've observed.
Nobody's ever proved the earth is flat.
I am not the person to talk about flight patterns and flight paths. Watching this show, who heard everything you said, and I'm pretty sure at some point in the next couple of days, they're going to have a comment about it, whether it be proving one way or the other, debating one way or the other, I should say. I am not the guy. I'm not the face of the whole flat earth. I am the face of me.
Okay. No model.
So
with a
if you
flat
want to, if you want to prove the earth is round to me, after everything that I've seen my entire life,
Mhm.
earth is round to me. I am open to whatever
would
you
that
want to
take?
prove to me.
Okay, what would it take?
Telling me and regurgitating the same stuff that I've heard
Okay.
is
So if
not
you-
going to
if you
convince
know-
me of
If,
anything.
if you look at your map, if you look at your flat earth map, you know that the distances between Johannesburg and Sydney on your map are not possibly the ones that that you can actually fly to in the times that are allowed. That's not.
What do you
You understand that, right?
say? What do you want me to say that we can move on to something else? Because you're still talking to me about flight paths, and I'm still trying to tell you, if you're telling me it takes from A to B to get there, with you, because I'm not the guy to disprove that or challenge that in
Well,
any way.
fair
But
enough.
you understand, when
Fair
you
enough.
look at the map, you realize that's not possible, right?
I look
Alright.
at the map, I see a possibility to try to try to challenge the idea of something. That's what I
Okay.
see when I look at that
So
map.
you said you see.
I'm not.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
All right. So you said you if we could prove it to you, you're open to change your mind, which is a complete turnaround from the beginning of this conversation. And
Never been. No, I've always said that. It's the fact is
You
that
said you would reject any proof, and that it was not possible for me to prove the point that I just proved. You said it was impossible.
you can try. All you're going to do is regurgitate the same thing science has been telling us for so long.
Okay,
And
fair enough.
you said
but-
you know there's an explanation.
Or
but-
wait a minute.
There's
You're right.
always an explanation
No, there
for it.
isn't.
Always.
There isn't in this case. There is not a flat Earth
No,
model
in
that
your
can
case,
prove
in
this.
your case,
Yours-
there's always an explanation for it. There's an
In my
explanation for
case, there's an
everything
explanation, yes.
Okay,
There is
all
not
right.
an
because
explanation
people
Wait a
believe.
that
Wait,
can account
wait.
for that.
Okay,
Mhm.
he says that he's not an expert on flight paths. That's fine. We can.
Right?
How about we do move on and ask him what the most convincing evidence he has for the flat Earth is that he could show us that could change our mind about the shape of the Earth. You're asking us what can you say? Can you give us one really good, convincing piece of evidence for the flat Earth?
One really good, convincing. Actually trying to go to space is about us being here on this earth to explain a lot of things. We have science to explain things, science to explain things that could be. Regardless of what someone tells you, believe in what you see, believe in what you feel, believe in what your senses tell you, regardless of what's in front of you. There's a lot of times that we have lazy and just depend on what people tell us. I can't do that. Outside of us going Earth to prove equivocally to either one of us or anyone who has any question or doubt or anyone who firmly believes in what they have, find your own truths, find your own proof.
You were saying that basically, are you saying that your beliefs are what convince you the Earth is flat, that you can't demonstrate it to us?
There's a lot of things that I can show that science is telling us different, which is fine. It is what it is. But belief has a lot to do with it. That's why it's really hard to do this. Talk about the Earth being flat without talking about the reason why. Why anyway? How everything is the way it is. About flat Earth without having that included. Because my beliefs is what got me on this show to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all even know how I even got here? Do you know how I got to be on this show?
I had been requesting a flat earther to come onto my podcast for a couple of years. I had put in requests to a number of the supposedly big channels for this kind of thing, and I was getting no takers, nobody. And so I ended up getting a number of other people that were looking around, and they would sometimes they would come up and say, hey, we got a flat earther that'll do it, but it turned out the flat earther wouldn't do it. And so finally, like I said, 2 years into this, I get a couple of people, and oh my gosh, they even asked me that I give them credit, and I can't remember the names of their YouTube.
Those guys, yeah.
Yeah, so these two guys find somebody say, hey, I've got a flat earther who will actually come on the show, and I was excited. And as I said, I was delighted also that I didn't get just a scam artist, because the biggest issue that I have in being on podcasts like this and talking to religious believers is because if I'm talking to a professional apologist, I'm talking to a bullshit artist. I'm talking to somebody who knows exactly when he has to lie and about what. So I'm not getting a showman with you. I know that. And so that's refreshing. But when you project onto me, you say that that it's because of my beliefs or because of my bias. I can demonstrate that the beliefs have nothing to do with this. If you book a flight from Johannesburg to Sydney, you're not going over the Himalayas, and it doesn't matter what you believe about that. It doesn't matter what you were raised to believe. When you look at it, you see ocean instead of mountains. It doesn't matter what you believe.
But all I'm saying is this: is that if you're saying the Himalayas is not underneath you, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that you are absolutely correct. Simply because I've never experienced the Himalayas. I've never flown over any ice-capped mountain, great or small. So I have no idea when I'm flying over or whatever, unless I'm being told by someone who knows better. I have to trust them because I haven't experienced it myself. That is. The other point is that not quite sure if we're positioned everywhere the way that we're told either. I just have a lot of questions, and I need to explore. That's what I need to do.
Okay.
I do have a lot of questions because a lot of stuff doesn't make sense, science related or otherwise.
If you have questions about what you believe or what other people believe, how do you distinguish a true belief from a false belief?
Like this. Belief from a false belief, but knowing the truth when you hear it. Over in tit people that I was speaking about. They do have a lot of flat earth information that's really interesting. It's not so much a true belief over a false belief. It's just a discernment to know that what's being presented to you or align with what you are feeling or choosing to believe within yourself. I believe in the flat earth. That doesn't mean that I'm going to cut myself, write my intent on a piece of paper, put my blood on that paper about my intent and gain the powers of Lucifer to conquer the world. As much as I believe in the flat earth, it doesn't fit my flat earth belief. So
Okay.
I'm not falling into that. I'm not saying that that stuff isn't real or that it is real or whatever. That's just what they believe and that's what they go for. That's
I have
just
an
not me.
example of what I'm asking you. You said at one time you believed in a spherical Earth, and then something changed your mind that you believed in a flat Earth. So
Yeah.
at some point, you thought the spherical Earth belief is false and the flat Earth belief is true.
The stuff that I was experiencing, like the moon is so close, almost like I could drive to it and throw a rock at it. Then, like 5 minutes later, it's so far up in the sky, its color and everything. So here's my question. I know science has a reason for this, but wouldn't that affect tides? Any gravitational or magnetic force that is applied from the Earth Sun perfect harmonization of the heliocentric model, something should affect the moon close to us. And I still don't feel a movement. So I'm looking at what I'm looking at outside of what science is telling me because it doesn't make sense.
Well, you know, tide comes in, tide goes out. We can't explain that.
Should we ask the chat questions now, Aaron?
Yes, I think so.
That's a good question. But I'm not saying that with the moon.
I think. Do you have a lag? Okay. All right. Is he frozen?
Ali, can you hear us?
Do I have a what?
He's still in.
Did you have a small bit of a lag there?
Yes, just a little bit when you were asking the question, I believe.
All right, here's the question. The first question from Paul the Skeptic. What about dawn and dusk? Where does the sun go in a flat Earth model at dawn and dusk?
Dawn and dusk. Flat Earth model goes around us. And I truly believe that it does because I've seen the moon do something that it shouldn't do if it was model. I'm constantly challenging myself here, guys. I'm constantly challenging myself because the moon looked like in the same spot, just moving slightly. But everything else in the night sky was moving. So it seemed like the moon was just sitting in the sky and the night sky was rotating around it. That's what it seemed like. Understand the moon is 238,000 miles away. I understand that we're moving at 1,000 miles an hour, rotating, revolving around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour. I get all that, but what I observe is something different, and it causes me to question what the science and numbers are telling me. 138,000 miles away, how come I look like I could drive? It looks like it's just hanging in the sky, just hanging there.
Okay.
Those are the things I observe.
So from some of the comments, some people are commenting that we're not actually getting you to answer the question. And
probably. I probably didn't. What's the question? I'm sorry.
For example, this question was about what about the dawn and the dusk? But then you started talking about the moon again. So
okay, circle. The way the Earth, the sun circles around us is how you get the dawn. Sun is coming around, whether it's high in the sky or lower or however it goes. What is called the dawn period or the dusk period as it goes down. So
what's
the
nighttime?
horizon, over the horizon or whatever.
Yeah.
So
But if the sun's above a disc-shaped globe, a disc-shaped world, then surely it would be visible at all times. So what's nighttime?
It's a little weirder than that because it's not just a disc-shaped world. It's a disc-shaped world. It's a snow globe. So it's covered with a crystal dome, and the sun and the moon and the stars are all inside the dome. so that Antarctica, instead of being an
But
island
every
continent
day
in the
I
middle-
witness the sun go over the horizon and
right, well,
disappears.
that's the same we mentioned before. Instead
Yeah.
of Antarctica being an island continent, Antarctica is a ring around their world, and this is where the firmament
The ice
joins in.
wall.
So there's literally nowhere for the sun to go at night. It's not possible for the sun to set in a flat Earth model.
In that
No, it
particular
goes
model.
around us. In that
So it's
particular model, it doesn't. It's going around us. It's a lot closer and a lot smaller
It's outside the firmament.
inside the firmament. The
Okay.
firmament has, if you want to say, of glass. Side of that
Yep.
layer is the solar system that we have so far as the what we
Okay, so
see
it's
as
not-
galaxies or whatever. Those are the stars there. And there's another layer.
Okay, so the Earth isn't the entire base of the snow globe model that we're proposing here.
Yes, the Earth is the bottom part, the base, the surface
entire-
of the snow globe.
The entire
Your
bottom
thing.
part.
So I don't even know if. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm still trying to get my head around how the sun
Yeah.
goes down in that model if it can't get outside this globe, because we witness it every day. I don't know about you,
And
but
I too.
I'm close to mountains. I'm close to the sea. I get to see the sun disappear or come up, with both. And I guess you experience a similar thing where you are too. It looks like
Same
it
thing.
disappears into the ground.
It does. But the challenge for me is I understand that it disappears into the ground. That's what I've been told. An alternative, how it actually goes down. I've noticed that because I'm paying close attention to everything, because if I believe this, I need to know what's going on with me. And I'm not crazy. Things just don't make sense to me anymore. Looking at how it doesn't set or go down, it kind of goes across and kind of disappears past what we can see. And
It goes on,
I
it goes
can't-
on an angle. You know
Yeah,
that angle
so-
changes too, doesn't it? During different times
does,
of the year, that
'cause-
angle will change.
exactly. And to me, in my model, it's going higher into the different atmospheres. And that's how close it is to us or how farther away, because there's times where, of course, the sun is directly above us and it's like shining, beating down right on my bald head.
But
I got another question on this.
I understand what Aaron was saying earlier then, because if the sun can't get outside that snow globe model,
Mhm.
there's no way it can actually get below ground level.
Exactly.
And yet it does.
So if you actually take out that it actually goes under the horizon or goes in the horizon or whatever you want to say it is, if you get rid of that, it would make sense.
But you can't. It
Is
doesn't
the
make
bottom of
sense.
the snow globe?
See, but that's the problem.
Yeah.
For me, I can get rid of it. For you, you can't.
No, neither of us can
So
get
this
rid of
is-
it. Neither of us.
You can't say none of us because there's people who actually
There's
believe that it
nobody-
goes
there's
around
nobody
and
who
not.
believe that and can't explain it, but there's nobody who can explain it. There's nobody who can get rid of that. The sun goes below the horizon. Go to the beach.
Oh,
Watch the sun
no.
rise from under the horizon. Watch it drop below
I think
the
that you guys
horizon
are trying
again.
to get me caught up in my words. I really need y'all to stop trying to get me caught up in my words.
That's not what
when I'm
trying to
saying
say.
that, no.
Just trying to understand. I'm asking questions.
Let me jump
If
in.
it's going to disappear, if it's going to disappear behind something, it's because what we have in front of us is so big that it looks like it disappeared. If we were to actually be able to follow the sun, way for us to follow the sun, I guarantee you exactly what the sun does. All we have is computer animations from people who have an idea what the science has been telling us, so they base their generated computer images off of that, and we're supposed to believe that because we have no way to track the sun.
Okay, when you go to
have.
Antarctica, how do you explain the people watching the sun set on the oceanic horizon from Antarctica? because that wouldn't be possible either.
Why wouldn't it?
Because
wouldn't
if Antarctica is not an island continent, if it's actually the ring around the world, then the
Right.
sun has to set in Antarctica. It has no choice.
No, it doesn't. No, because it's going around, sir. If someone is in Antarctica, they're in a specific point in Antarctica. What they see is relative to what's in front of them.
Right. So if
It's
you're-
not like
if
you're
in
speaking for one group of people in one spot. Happening in front of them encompasses everybody, and that's not the case because it's winter here.
Okay, so if you're in
Heat is.
if you're in Antarctica, right? You're on the shoreline.
Right.
You see the sun
Right.
set over the ocean, not Antarctica, which is behind
Okay.
you. So how is it possible that it sets anywhere else
Right.
other than Antarctica? Because that's where you would see it set.
Because Antarctica is huge. Okay. If there's a part where people are living, it's a habitable part of Antarctica. If they are in a part where there's ocean and they can see the sun go behind it, it's just like everything else that happens here. It's going behind it or going underneath it, and it's the horizon line. If they were actually able to go and follow the sun, it will still be
Okay.
wherever it is, and no matter how far, if they were to get behind us, if they were to follow the sun
Mhm.
and realize that it appeared before them, once they crossed that horizon line mark from where they were from the shoreline, hey, the sun is still there. Let the sun get ahead of us a little bit more. It'll drop down underneath something else again that we would call a horizon. And once you track the sun again, it'll rise up right in front of you
Let me illustrate this another
and
way.
going all the way around.
Let me illustrate this another way. In the far, when you get up to the Arctic Circle,
Mhm.
the sun is very low in the sky. Okay, so it never gets to the middle like it does in the tropics.
Okay.
And when you see it set, it sets south of you. Now, when you go to Antarctica, the sun sets north of you. So on
Okay.
any beach in Antarctica, you can position people all the way around the continent. All of them will see the sun rise north of them, not in Antarctica. All of them will see the sun set north of them, not in Antarctica, which again
If
proves that Antarctica is not the ring around a flat world.
No, it doesn't. All it does is just prove you would have to not have Antarctica as a continent. You're trying to fit your scientific mind and what you've observed into a flat earth model that you do not believe in, have any
It has
chance of
nothing to
even
do with
considering.
If
But
you were in our,
what's
if
the
you,
consider-
if you believe in a flat Earth and you're
All right.
standing
No, I have a question for you.
watch the sun set in the ocean, not in Antarctica, then how do you, with
Mhm.
your belief, how do you explain that?
I don't have a way to explain it.
Right. Okay. And there's another really important
Science
one.
does, so the science must be true. Science does, so the science is true.
Exactly. So there's another issue that we need to talk about, and that was gravity and what mechanism you've constructed for all of these planets to move as they do. What makes the sun go up and stay on a course and all that? Because now you've got to have a you have to have a mechanism that makes the sun.
I know.
Originally, when we started this
Man.
part one, you said that you accepted that the moon Miranda had these pockmarks in it, that because you accepted that the gravity on Miranda was arcing these meteorites to hit it more or less direct on. Obviously, then later you abandoned gravity. So now you've abandoned that explanation. So now we
That's what I was-
we still have to know how does it get these craters?
See, but that's what I was saying about my words. You understand what I'm saying? Because I remember exactly what I said. Try to explain something to me to get me to agree with what you're saying. I'm going to agree with you because what you're saying makes sense.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that I believe what you're saying. It's just that I know the science behind everything that you are presenting to me. Have is that the science isn't always making sense, sir.
Okay, well,
It's not that I'm saying that the gravity, it's not that I'm saying that your so-called gravity, I'm not that the gravity existed and that it was hitting your planet at 90-degree angles the whole time, which makes absolutely no sense to me, regardless of how it's explained. I don't understand how if something spinning through space can only get hit at a 90-degree angle.
The
I've skipped
explanation
rocks
was
across
that
the surface. So
because-
what's rock skipping across the surface of the water?
No,
How is that
wrong.
explained? That's something different. That's something
Yeah.
different.
Yes, as I said, if gravity exists, then
Mhm.
matter attracts matter. And so if you have a large ball, and in this case we were talking about a moon that's only 300 miles across, but then we're only talking about small pockmarks. So we're talking about debris, very small particles that are flying along that are not going to always skip sideways. It's been very difficult, in fact, for them to do that because the gravity is going to cause those items to arc toward it, because that's the way gravity works. It bends the fabric of space-time, and so it's going to cause all these things to arc more or less directly. How do you explain when we have major asteroid collisions on this planet?
Asteroid collisions, like what?
You've never seen you've never seen a meteor shower, for example.
Wait, but you said major asteroid collisions. When you say meteor shower, to me that's something different.
Okay.
I don't understand what a major asteroid collision. I've seen plenty of
example.
movies.
Okay, I'll give you an example.
Never seen one in our sky.
I know. I'll give you an example. There was one in the Yukon. I think it was around 1990. I think that was the date. No, that date. I may have that confused with another one. It might be more recent. But there was one that exploded in the upper atmosphere and left debris around a frozen lake. But it exploded with the force of an atomic bomb. It was unfortunate that it happened in. Well, it was fortunate actually that it happened in the Yukon, but it wasn't in heavy news because of that. If it happened over Los Angeles, then it'd be a big deal. But how do you? I mean, there's a number of meteors that we get that like some the size of cars. I mean, you have to light up the whole sky, and then you crash somewhere. Maybe sometimes offshore. Like there was one in the 70s when I was in California. There was one of the size of a station wagon that landed just offshore. They retrieved that. So how do you explain those?
The way that I can say that I explain those is I don't think that they're actually meteors. What I believe is that they may be pieces of the firmament. The reason why I believe that is because piece of what's called, I guess they called it sky glass from the sky. It was actually once they broke it down and broke a piece off, they found that it was like 70% oxygen and the rest of it was made out of other pieces from our atmosphere. So it was really interesting, this piece of rock that they found. And the reason why I believe that so-called asteroids or whatever that's coming to Earth, which the government has already said that if you find anything that falls from the sky, it belongs to us. You can't even look at it or anything. I believe that they're actually pieces of firmament. The trip part is
there was one in '69 that landed in Australia that was riddled with amino acids and other extremely complex chemical constructs. But
where was that? Australia.
So I mean, there's no hint of firmament. Certainly not molten glass. We're talking about like.
Is there any pictures of this thing or
lots of studies about it?
Well, I find
Arizona.
I'm sorry. What's the question?
This is a picture of meteor crater in Arizona. I think you live in Arizona. Have you ever been to Meteor Crater Park?
It's quite famous.
No.
Can you see it?
I've never been.
Go and look. That's
Yes,
awesome sight.
Yeah.
Have you seen?
So okay, so you're trying to say that that's your point. Okay, that's your point.
Yeah.
Thing. I don't believe that our ancient history is what they are telling us. What I believe is from a ancient man. You guys, here we go. It's from an ancient nuclear test.
Okay,
What
we're just
evidence do you have?
I don't believe that.
Yeah, we're not even going to walk there. I'm going to go with something
All
else.
right, I'll
Yeah.
abandon that.
Yeah, for right now, I
Hey,
want to know.
look, hey,
I want to know what is your explanation for the substitute of gravity? How does that work?
my explanation for the substitute of gravity. I'll tell you how it came to me. It's during the same night that I walked out with the moonlight shade.
Good. I'll do that
Um,
experiment.
I was outside believing how I believe, the way people do when they believe. They go outside and they have a conversation. I had a conversation. I was like, I never asked for anything. Gravity is. I want to know why weight is so important. Came back to me, and I'm not quite sure how all the math works out. There's probably an explanation for it somewhere, but I'm curious to find out what it is. I believe that gravity has to do with magnetic fields. The reason why I say this is why. A board or 2x4, let it stand up on its own. My question was, how come humans don't do that? What's the difference between or anything that wants to stand up on its own without having the help of the other? Let's say like a chair has 4 legs. A chair can't have 2 legs because it will tip over. Humans have 2 legs. So my question was, what's the importance
we have
of
muscles
weight?
too, right?
We do have muscles.
And toes,
Okay.
which adjust for our weight distribution.
I
which allows.
I don't believe in the toes, sir. I
You
don't
don't
believe in the
believe in
toes.
toes?
You're gonna have to prove. You're gonna have to prove to me the toes. Andrew, I'm with you on the muscles, but the toes, sir. I don't believe the toes.
Are you pulling our leg?
I don't know what you mean by that. I'm genuinely. What do you
so-
mean you don't believe in toes?
But he was
You've blown my
joking.
mind.
But the question on gravity is still a big one because we
Thank
have the
goodness.
The question of gravity. I don't believe that gravity, the way that it's presented to us, is that. I believe the word gravity is a real word, but the way that it's calculated and what it's actually applied to different depending on what the object is. And I understand that gravity is calculated that way depending on the object, but I think magnetics have a lot to do with it. I
Okay, so-
think that
All right.
human versus anything that is made from the earth itself, let's say like for instance.
Okay. Are you suggesting
Us.
that? I'm sorry. I'm just
Go ahead.
querying. Are you suggesting that everything that is affected by gravity has some sort of magnetic property?
Not everything, but I think our human bodies is more attuned to the magnetic forces of things.
Okay,
And that's what keeps
so-
us upright versus
You know, it keeps us on the earth as well. There's actually a force that keeps us on the earth, not just upright, but on the surface.
right. And that the force that I believe that you're speaking of is just weight itself. I don't think that gravity would be the word for it because I think that gravity should fit a different force rather than just us weighing enough
Okay.
more
so-
than the weight of air. I mean, if we weighed less than air, of course we would
I-
float off.
I assume the moon weighs something.
If that's an assumption you would want to make, I don't
I'm just asking.
I don't know if the moon would weigh.
So
I don't know.
Is the moon
I don't
heavier?
know if the moon.
Is it heavier or lighter than air?
I don't know.
I would, under your model, I would say that if it's heavier than air, it should have fallen to Earth.
Nope.
No?
See, there's a lot of things going on here than just the flat Earth, guys, and that's the problem. That's the problem.
Okay.
If we were living in a simulation, that moon would stay up there, Graham, too.
Okay, so what
It'll
holds the
phase
moon up?
itself. I don't know what holds the moon up.
Okay, what
I'll
holds
ask
the
that
moon on
question and get
course?
that figured out. I believe, okay. I believe the moon holds its course I believe the moon phases itself. I believe the moon does everything that it does because it's programmed to.
The moon phases itself because it's programmed to. Okay, so even if we imagine that's possible, by what
That's
mechanism
expanded.
does it phase itself?
It's programmed to, like a program. Like,
But wouldn't there be a force that acts upon it? I mean, you mentioned earlier that the sun goes from the outside of the disk to the inside and then back out before
yes,
season.
and that
So there's some force that operates on it to push it in and then push it back out. So what is that, and how does that
and
work?
keep everything going, right?
Right, well,
in
the moon's doing a similar
in such
sort
a
of
way
thing
to
in
where
the
it all works. Now, the thing that keeps everything working together is an experience that, here we go, somebody from the Bible had. His name is Ezekiel. He saw a wheel when he went into heaven. That wheel that he saw, our earth. It keeps everything in motion. Even our autonomous bodies are controlled, fit in this environment that was created for us. Flat earth. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Okay, I got another question. There's several.
Whatever.
Several. I mean, if I go out and pick up a rock outside right now and bring it in,
Yeah.
what would you estimate that rock has been programmed to do?
Whatever a rock is, to be hard. If you throw it, it'll probably break something.
Okay, so how is it?
If I cut my
possible
finger,
to
it's going to
program-
bleed.
Is it possible to program a rock?
Is it possible that if you were to simulate in reality, let's say like The Sims or any massive multiplayer online game, the laws that are governed in that game, that are programmed in that game, are going to fit the character that's in that game?
Okay, so can you program a rock to be different?
Yeah, if you're creating it, you can make it be whatever. You can make a rock stand for whatever you want.
Okay, so can we program a rock to be different than it already is?
We are, but if you're speaking of yourself as the sole controller of, and there's nothing else going on around you out here, you can to say that once you break down to the basic of everything, the smallest molecule that holds everything in this matter together, as complex as it is, it's there. These codes have been found by scientists, and they are speculating that we're living in a simulation.
There's a
It
scientist.
just came to me
There's a
easy.
scientist who wasn't
Easy.
immediately fired, who is speculating that we're living in a simulation.
Yeah, because people
speculation.
actually have different opinions, and it's okay to have a different opinion. So
Not
yeah,
when
he
you're a
wasn't
scientist.
immediately fired.
Not when you assert things that do not have factual basis behind them.
Well, yeah.
Well, what
and
if they have
speculation-
factual basis behind it? Go ahead, Andrew. I'm sorry.
And there's the difference. See, speculation and actually providing evidence that backs your claims are different things. You can speculate
Right.
that we're living in a matrix type world, but unless you present some evidence, some verifiable evidence, objective, measurable, all that sort of things
Mhm.
that actually demonstrate that that's the case, there's no reason to accept it's true.
Well, that's for you. You want us to say that it's true for you.
Well,
This is what
The
I've
alternative is-
But
experienced.
what's true for
But this is-
me is
the
true for
alternative is to
right? Or if it
accept
isn't
everything
true at
as
all.
being true.
Well, this is the thing. It's not that it's not true at all. It's just that there's a different thing that's going on than what is actually.
Okay, let me
Perceived to
put this
be-
another way. Let
be
me put
true.
this another way. On your model, on your map of your projection of the world, Australia is 6,000 miles across. But we know that in reality, it's not 6,000 miles across. So that's true for me. Is it true for you?
Right, because you went from one end and went to the other end, and
Uh-huh.
you automatically know that nobody can tell you that it's 4,000 miles across because you've experienced the 6,000 yourself, and not just because somebody told you it was 6,000.
No,
I
the
can't
flat
just
earthers
believe what
say that
somebody
it's
tells me.
6,000 miles. The flat earthers say that it's
Flat
6,000
earthers,
miles.
I don't.
in reality, it's 2,500.
I don't know.
So, is it 2,500 for me, or is it 2,500 for both of us?
It's 2,500 for whoever believes it's 2,500.
And even if
I don't know what it is.
24, even if you don't believe it's 2,500, can we still prove
Mhm.
that it's 2,500 regardless what you believe about it?
Because I would like to know the truth. Let's take a trip, measure this thing, and get it done.
Okay, well, I've done that, and you're welcome to do it again. But the point that I'm
Let's
trying
do
to
it
make
again.
is, if it's true for
Let's
me,
do it
it's
again.
true for you, or it's not true
Come on
for you
down.
Let's do
at
it.
all.
Let's do it again for somebody
missing
who's
the
not
point.
just going to follow.
You're missing the point. It's either true for all of us, or it's not true for any of us. You understand what I mean?
Well, I understood it when you said it this time.
Okay, Australia is 2,500 miles wide, regardless what you believe about it. You can't
Okay.
believe it into being 6,000. You can say that it's 6,000, and that may be true for you. But you know what? It's not true for you. It's not true for anybody. It's not 6,000. It doesn't matter. It's not. There's no true for you and true for me that's different. The truth for me is the truth for you. And if it's not true for me, it's not true for you either.
I'm just trying to understand this. It's true.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Oh,
On the side of Australia here recently, they just found a whole continent. Where did that continent come from? Where did that landmass come from?
Where did Australia
Up and
come
down
from?
this place. There's nowhere left to explore. And Australia, there was a continent that was just found, a landmass that was just found.
There was a
Found.
which one? What's it called? Where is it? I live here, and
It's
I
okay,
thought it would
so-
have made the news, but it hasn't.
That's the whole problem. If it didn't make the news to you, that's the issue that I'm having, because there was this continent that was just found. Let me pull it up.
Okay.
I think I actually know the story he's talking about, but it's submarine.
But
Let's just let it run.
here we go.
I'm
Get this
Just to let you know, I'm running low on battery, so if my computer shuts down, I'll disappear. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, I want to thank you for being on, Andrew.
No problem.
Are there any other questions from the chat that we need to get out?
Paul the Skeptic asked about Jupiter and gravity and looking at its moons and patterns through telescopes.
Yeah,
That's something that's again an experiment we can all do.
yeah.
Just need access to a decent telescope.
So you accept that that there are
Wait
moons
to see
around other
stars.
planets? Do you accept that there are moons around other planets?
Well, I haven't seen side to know what's around there. I could say that what was made is unbelievable, and I couldn't fathom. It's like,
Okay, so
cannot
You
wait
know-
to see stars myself.
You know, you can actually go to National Geographic, a store, and buy a telescope and look at Jupiter yourself.
you can
and-
also go to
and
stargazing parties.
I actually have a telescope, but for some reason it's not. I have a telescope, and ever since I've come into this, I've been trying to look up at the night sky, but I don't think the telescope is for.
I've had the fortune of being able to use one of those ridiculously expensive, super fat telescopes that enabled me to see two of the moons of Saturn. So I can see Saturn, I can see the rings, and I could also see two of its moons. It was brilliant. But a telescope that is capable of seeing that is expensive because that's a long way away. Which kind of gets in the way of the whole firmament idea. Why would it be that you would?
Well, it
need
doesn't.
such-
No, it doesn't.
So how
No,
big
it
is
doesn't.
Saturn? And where is
I don't. Why are you asking me how big these planets are?
Because if you want
Planets
to have,
are.
if you want to
I
imagine
mean,
that you're
because
your
you're.
disk- if you want to imagine that the disk,
What you're doing is trying to fit
Mhm.
your head, Mr. Rod. Don't rub your forehead, sir. It's really. I just want you to understand. You're talking to somebody who
We're trying.
But you're
Okay,
trying to fit and
Go on.
think of Saturn. I could see it as beautiful as you guys have seen it in telescopes. I can see that. How it fits in the firmament, huge. This is not just some small little dinner plate that you could just put a thing over and be like, okay, there's the humans, and put it back on, and that's just supposed to be it. This thing is huge beyond anything that we can even think of.
That's fine.
Big Saturn is. I'm not quite sure how it fits into the scope of the firmament. I have no idea.
Is it an object that fits into the crystal dome that we referred to earlier? If I get my phrasing right.
Yeah, if the disk
It
is
is.
16,000
It
miles
fits into the
across,
dome.
So
and the dome is a
fits in.
hemisphere, that means it's within 8,000 miles. So we have to fit something
If you were
100,000 miles wide into a space that's only 8,000 miles. So
what if it was smaller than that? What if it was smaller than that?
it's not
Well,
possible. And then again, we
To
get into
apply
the issue
your
of
science to
then we get into the issue of gravity. And
gravity.
sit there.
But how
Hang on.
would gravity affect if you have the night sky sandwiched in between two glasses? How would gravity affect that?
You have the
Thing
night
you know
sky.
about our so-called universe, wrap it around the dome, fit it around the dome, and that's our.
Except that it's not remotely
So to
like
speak.
that, because you have
No,
the heliocentric model,
But that's what
right? You have all the other planets.
that's your heliocentric
right.
model.
This is
I don't see the sun.
And then around the planets, you have moons that orbit around them.
Okay.
But none of this
Right.
is possible on the flat Earth model.
well,
That's not
if the
true.
planet is
That's
fixed-
not true.
If the planet, hang on, if the planet is fixed into the firmament, then surely the moons are too, and because they're fixed in that crystal sphere, they don't move, but they do move. They all
They do.
You can witness it. You can kind of right.
Yeah,
so how does that
I
happen?
agree.
Again. So how
Like
does
I
that
mentioned
happen?
before, stories that I choose to believe. Stars that we have in our night sky that move are called wandering stars. They're the only ones that actually move. They're the only ones that move. But what science tends for us to want to believe is that because they're moving, it must prove that we're moving. And I don't see it.
Okay,
Well,
I don't
the-
think we can beat this horse any deader than it is. I want to have the questions from the chat.
Legend.
I don't want to abuse the guest. You've been on another 2 hours, and now we're 2 hours and 20 minutes into
Really?
This. So this is, yeah. So
Yeah,
we've been doing this one for a while.
11.
And I want to thank you again because I know that
Oh.
this is hostile and I know that this is a challenge. So I want to thank you again for being on and going through this. But I do want to get the people to respect the other people too and have their questions thrown out there while we have a chance to do that. And Andrew,
All right,
if
I'm
your
gonna-
battery goes out, thank you for being on.
Oh, no problem at all. It's great to meet you. I'd like to swap contact details, so I'll get in contact with you, Aaron, and we'll do
All right.
this
Yes, sir.
moonlight temperature experiment thing. That'd be good.
Yes.
Awesome.
Good to see you again.
All
Aaron.
right.
Thank you, Andrew.
Good to see you too. I'm going to punch out now, and I'll catch you guys later.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, see you now.
That guy had me over to his house barbecuing kangaroo every single day for a week.
What is it, man?
I love
Kangaroo.
Barbecue kangaroo. is awesome. Anyway,
Say, try
Londra, you
I did one time and I love it.
do you have those questions?
Here we go. C. Scott LS is asking, is Neptune flat? Is Jupiter flat? Is the sun flat? Is our moon flat? What happens if the Earth has a massive collision? Do we all fly off the supposed wobbling disk?
Okay.
Do you think the things
I'll go ahead and let's start with the first part of the flat, like
Yeah.
Mercury, Venus, Uranus. I believe the same. They were created the same. The moon are. Do I believe the sun and the moon are flat? I don't believe they're flat. I believe that they give off a simulated roundness or curvature or spherical look. I believe that they're flat. A very, very, very good projection. I believe that the sun heats the earth. I believe the sun is bright, warm, its light is hot, but I don't believe the sun heats the earth. I believe the sun is just a lamp to day. So as day you have that distinction between day and night. And I believe that that's what the sun and moon are, basically.
So was the answer to the question that you think that
It's
the
not
moon
flat.
is not flat?
Sun is not flat. It's not flat or not,
Okay, sun and moon are not flat, they're spherical.
or not flat. They're not spherical.
Okay.
They give the presentation like they're spherical, but they're not round. They're not round at all. It's not a ball hanging over us.
So why can't we trust our eyes if they look spherical?
But that's the whole thing.
What
For
shape
some
are
reason,
they?
what I see,
What shape are they? Yeah.
what are they? What was the question?
What shape are they if they're not spherical? And why do they look spherical?
Like I mentioned just a moment ago, I believe they look spherical is because simply I believe, and it's a lot of stuff that I deal with that I look at is really basic. I believe that it was created to look spherical. Oh, man, that's how he wanted it to look. I can't separate them, and I'm trying so hard
So
to.
what shape are they? If they're not spheres and they're not flat, what shape are they?
If we're choosing shapes, it would have to be round. But is it a round circle ball, spherical? It is not. It's round,
the
if that's the shape. The options are whatever options you come up with, which is probably going to be that it's a that we're revolving around speed that can't be detected unless
I mean, it
science
can't be- it's not a tetrahedron, right? I mean, there's only so many shapes we can put a name to. I mean, Earth is typically described as an oblate spheroid, meaning not quite a perfect sphere, but distended in some places. You know, that it's a little bit irregular, not quite a perfect sphere. But,
Well,
you know,
if that's okay, so wait, so if the Earth could be a little bit irregular,
yeah,
applying those irregularities to any math that is applied when we start talking about the globe, why are we accepting a planetoid oblate and just accepting that without challenging how that oblateness affects what we see and what's going on around us?
we don't.
So on that.
We don't just accept and not.
Well, I mean, there's pictures that NASA has of the Earth being perfectly round. I don't see
No,
any
there are not.
oblateness there.
There are not. The pictures that NASA showed, the pictures
What?
that were taken, yeah, the pictures that were taken from the moon are not a perfect sphere. That's
Not
an
the
oblate
ones from the
spheroid.
moon.
Right. The pictures taken from
Supposedly
the moon
take right
the
outside
Earth.
of Earth.
The pictures.
Yeah, they have that little shadow there underneath.
Right. It was an oblate spheroid. It's not a perfect sphere.
You're absolutely right. So I must not be talking about that one since it's not perfectly round. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the Earth pictures that NASA has that they put on their website to show us that it's perfectly round.
Okay. I'm going to
Blatantness
look
to it at all.
now, pictures of the Earth.
Let's go look
I'm
together.
I will look again at all the pictures I've ever seen of the Earth taken from the moon. I'm not going to see a perfect sphere among any of them.
I'm not talking about the moon, sir. Stop saying the moon.
And
About the moon. I'm talking about
not
images
talking
of
about the moon
Earth
either.
that I just pulled
I'm
up off
talking
of
about
Google.
Images of Earth that were taken from the moon are an oblate spheroid, not a perfect sphere.
So why is NASA telling me it's a perfect sphere? A sphere. I don't see it.
Share your screen. Share where that. Show me where it says perfect sphere.
You show me on your screen
where it says oblate spheroid?
Oblate. No,
Okay.
not where it
I
says
can
it,
show
where
you.
it shows it, because images from NASA is telling something completely different.
Okay, show me that they're
Green.
telling you something completely different. Show me where they
Because
say perfect
they're
sphere.
saying that
I
it's a,
can
it's a
show
round circle.
you. I can show you where they say oblate spheroid. I can actually show you where they say those
Well,
words.
no, I actually brought it up in the beginning of the show where I said Neil deGrasse Tyson is saying shape, it's not quite round.
Yeah, but you
You
can't
don't have to show
but
me
you can't-
where it's written.
But you
I
can't
heard it come
show-
from your scientist's mouth.
Okay.
But you can't show where NASA says perfect sphere because they never did. It's not, well, the scientist is telling us something completely different. No, they're not. They're saying
Come on,
the same
NASA,
thing
you got it.
consistently.
I
They're
think
not saying what you say they're saying.
the point Arn is making is that
I
it's
am
not
looking at a
perfect,
round picture.
like symmetric,
Round,
Oh,
yes, but not perfect sphere. Oblate spheroid.
like an orange isn't a perfect sphere if you were to measure it. It has some
Right.
irregularities.
Okay.
That's what he's trying to say. The
My
Earth,
question.
it,
Why is NASA showing perfect round pictures
They're
of
not.
the Earth if that's
They're
not
not.
what it is?
They've never taken
Go
a
to pictures
perfect-
of the Earth.
Okay, I will look at
Pictures of
again. I will look
random
again.
people.
I will look at again at all the pictures that were ever taken of the Earth from away from the Earth because I've already seen every one of them, and there's never been one that was a perfect sphere. Neither is there one that says it's a perfect sphere. They
Okay.
are all oblate spheroid, which is very
All right.
close
I
to-
understand what you're saying, sir.
okay, let's
Yeah.
move on to the next question.
Okay.
This is maybe coincidentally maybe a little bit related to the other question about what shape are the other planets and the moon and the sun. And I just wanted to interject before I ask the question. What science says the Earth? Science is saying the Earth is a sphere, moon is a sphere, and the sun is a sphere because when objects become massive enough, gravity makes just like the next question is about Mars. Mars has two moons, but they're not spheres because they're not massive enough for gravity to make them into a
To
sphere.
make it.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Capital H, Q, and A. We have polar caps. Mars has them too.
Okay.
You can see them in a small telescope, like most telescopes. You can picture Mars. How would you explain a visible globe that has ice caps, but Earth is different, but also has ice caps?
Getting up a little bit with the question.
Just a second. I'll get a picture of Mars, like a telescope picture. So maybe that'll help picture what he's saying, what they are saying. Let me see. Mars polar ice caps. All right.
Mars ice cap. I thought he was talking about here on Earth. He's talking about the ice
oh.
caps from Mars.
They have ice caps. Mars has ice caps just like the Earth is what the point is. I'm going to screen share it, a picture of what they're talking about right now. Okay.
Okay.
Here
Some
it
of the planets also have aurora borealis. I mean,
Uh,
they have the
those are
aurora
the
going on their poles.
aren't.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
here-
aliens exist too.
Here's some images of the ice caps on Mars. The Earth also
And is
has
this
these.
I'm sorry, you started talking about aliens for reasons I can't understand. You don't accept that
no, I mean
the
we
other planets have aurora going on their poles?
can't accept it unless I see it for myself.
Okay, well, you're welcome to look it up.
Can't just believe. I can't
Right.
just believe it.
Right. Get a telescope or look
To
it up
me.
and look at the images that were already taken. And understand that some of the other planets do have aurora going on. You know, these are the gas
Okay.
giants that have aurora going on in the
Are you because of what I believe aurora is? I could believe it, but I would like to see it because it sounds cool.
Okay. So the question again, I didn't before we got in talking about auroras. The question, we can see Mars's ice caps, and Earth also has ice caps. By analogy, don't you think that we've got those same caps because we are also a sphere, and the our north and south poles aren't getting as much direct sunlight like what's happening on Mars?
I have a hard time believing the surface of any planet that it pictures of. Believe in those pictures
But you can
simply
get a telescope
because.
and see the same thing. On
Okay,
Mars.
then I'll probably have to do that.
Yeah. You can
Like a telescope.
you can
and see
image
this
them
stuff.
yourself.
Now, also know that. Okay, yeah, I'll get it myself.
Okay. So I guess we'll go on to the next question. Number 4. This is from PZ Myers, I believe. So, how far away do you think the sun is, if not 93 million miles? How far do you think it is away?
I have no idea how far to even think of how, but I know it's not 93 million miles away. It seems to be such a great distance closer.
If the Earth in your
From
model
where I am,
is, if the Earth in your model is a flat disk of 16,000 miles across, sitting with a hemispherical dome over the top of it, then that dome is only going to be 8,000 miles. So you're telling me that this million-mile wide object is a tiny thing sitting less than 8,000 miles away.
right on top of us. That's what I'm telling you.
And yet it only lights portion of the disk at one time. So
It lights up with the.
for Andrew, and it's nighttime for us. And if this is a disk, that can't happen. If it's up
What
for him,
can't
it's
happen?
up for us. If the sun is up for
You-
him,
no.
the sun is up for us.
Heliocentric model. On the heliocentric
No.
model.
On your model, if it's a disk, you put a light over here, a little teeny light on one side of this disk, it lights the whole disk. It doesn't matter. It's going to light the whole disk.
No, it's not. No, it's not. You can roll your eyes, sir.
Physics.
Sense
It's gonna
of it.
light the whole disk.
It doesn't. The whole disc.
It is. It
Because
will.
if it lit the if it lit the whole, see, but that's the whole thing. If it's smaller and closer, and a sunlight effect, huge big sun that you're trying to put inside my firmament, sir, it's not going to fit. Think smaller, a lot more basic, and try not to complicate things with math that science has given us,
I've done
and just
no
try to
math.
strip down.
I've done no math here. I'm just showing you that if you take a tiny pen light and hold it as big a plate as you like, it's going to light the whole disk. That's the way it works, and it doesn't work any other way.
Right.
Next
I understand
question,
what you're saying. And I would say if I was to take a piece of paper, pinhole through it, take a light that was able to get to that pinhole is only going to be lit according to the size of the hole, unless I change the direction of the light source itself, which is going to give it an angle.
So does the sun shine through a pinhole?
No hole.
What?
What are you asking me? I'm just trying to understand the line of question. You're asking me if the sun shines through a pinhole?
Yeah, I mean, that's why did we bring up a pinhole if it's not relevant to what we're talking about? That's why I'm asking.
I thought you said something about a paper in the pinhole and that the light is going to shine over the whole surface.
That was all you. I never mentioned anything about paper and pinhole. I was
We got
asking
some-
why you brought that up.
Oh, that's because I thought you said it. I was trying to explain the whole pinhole. But if you didn't say that, then that's fine.
I said pen light. A
Next-
light on the end of your pen. So a very small light.
Next question. If this is from Thumbs Down Man, if centrism is sun worship, is geocentrism Earth worship?
I'm sorry, repeat that. I heard
Okay.
first part of it. I wouldn't know what this.
If heliocentrism is sun worship, it is geocentrism Earth worship.
Oh,
Is
no.
Earth the center of the universe? Is that Earth worship? Because you were saying that people who
No, it's
sun
not.
worshippers.
Worship. It's not. It's not Earth worship.
Okay. Well, let's go on to the next question then. Number 6, God's right hand asks, how does this guy explain low Earth orbit and geosynchronous Earth orbit satellites? Why do we have satellites that are allowing us to talk to each other right now?
Okay, breaking up pretty bad. What was the question again? Let's try this again.
Okay, how do you explain low Earth orbit satellites and geosynchronous Earth orbit satellites? Like satellites that are are synced with the Earth's rotation.
I would have to say that the whole rotation part, but low it seems to be the magic zone that has to do with NASA science. And the Earth is a globe, space stations, and all of that. The only shuttle that has ever gone outside the Earth's orbit into the Van Allen radiation belt is the Apollo mission to the moon. Been in low Earth orbit. If that's not true, then I have to check my sources.
Okay.
Where was Voyager?
Where did it go?
Voyager.
Where did the Voyager go?
Voyager
Left our solar system entirely.
That's up, and all the people are teaching at different universities in America, is it?
What's that?
Which one was that one?
That was the one that was primarily designed by Carl Sagan, that took the picture, the famous pale blue dot image. We've sent probes. We've sent
86.
a number of probes to Venus. We've sent probes to Mercury. We've sent probes to Mars, several of them in each case. Different countries competing against each other have sent probes in a race trying to get their probes there sooner. The Russians beat us. The Russians beat us to Venus. They landed a number. But they've actually landed some on Venus, which was kind of impressive because Venus is a climate is really hostile.
I guess they were smart enough to figure it out.
Yep. Which again,
have you guys seen the Russian moon landing by any chance?
No.
Oh, if you have any spare time and you're curious, check out the Russian moon landing. It's pretty interesting stuff.
Okay. I still have a huge question on gravity, but I want to get to Lalandra to finish the other people's questions.
Since there are maybe eight more questions. No, let me think. About 7 more questions. I'm just gonna read through them, and you can pick which one you want to answer. Okay, that way we get everything in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Bo Hobo Rasmussen says, please have him come up with a hypothesis that would explain the difference between the forces acting on an object inside a moving car plane and outside of the car plane.
Come up with a hypothesis. Yes.
Okay. So
the reason why I say pass is because that's something that I actually have to come up with. I understand the concept and what I would need to do in order to prove it. I just want to actually do it.
Okay.
Kind of makes sense to the difference between a fly moving inside of a car. If you were in a trailer and the trailer was moving were in the back in the trailer and the trailer was moving, if you jumped, would the laws of motion apply to you? And the plane landing at 1,000 miles an hour on the earth, moving that fast, all of that stuff. So, question,
Okay.
and I will.
All right.
To
Next
to
question. What's the firmament made out of? Where did it come from? How is it able to maintain its structural integrity?
Firmament, not quite sure what it's made up of, but there was a rock. You guys could research this. There was a rock that was found. I believe it's called the Sky Rock or Sky Stone or something like that. That was found, and I believe that it's a piece of the firmament. Once microscoped, they were actually able to see grid lines, which is something that people are saying that they're able to see at various points when they really zoom into certain parts of the firmament, which is interesting. I don't believe everything. I'm still trying to figure a lot of this stuff out. That what it's made of, I'm not sure. Where it comes from is it was created to enclose our system. This earth was made for us to enjoy, but of course man has his own things that we do. But the firmament was to be enclosed in here within the night sky and to actually figure all of this stuff out, to play in it, our own observations and believing in our heart and our gut and in our minds and deep within ourselves certain things. And that, guys, don't let nobody tell you it's not okay to do that. It's okay to feel, regardless of what the status quo or society says. It's okay to be different.
It's okay to say that Australia is
I will-
6,000 miles wide when it's not.
Okay to say 6,000 miles if I traveled the entire circumference of Australia and measured the 6,000 miles for myself.
You mean you can't prove it right now by booking a flight from, and not even having to pay for the flight? Just look it up. What is it going to cost? What is the time? When does it leave? When does it land?
This is the thing that I have an issue with. This is the thing I have a issue with. And I'll even go so far as to say this. Disagree on a flight path and try to determine it like that. Where's the exploration, guys? Are we done exploring? Are we done trying to figure this out for ourselves because people have done it already?
Are you saying that
Measure
would not
6,000 miles. That it won't, because 2 plus 2 is always going to equal 4, no matter how you break it down.
Okay, so what would it take then?
Experience things myself.
Okay,
So
your
here,
map.
start here, go around. I need my own experiences. Even my map doesn't tell me everything. I can't go by my math and equivocally say that that is absolutely true because I need to experience things myself. I'm not going to sit here and let somebody tell me that, hey, well, prove to me it's true. Let me prove that I can.
You know
okay.
right now that you could book a flight from Sydney to Perth. And you already know.
I could book a flight anyway. I could book a flight anywhere. Are you trying to prove that I could book a flight?
But you know from that you don't actually have to take that flight to know that when it leaves, when it lands, and how far the distance is. That you know it's not 6,000 miles. You already know that, and you haven't even booked that flight yet.
Okay.
Right? So you know that your flat Earth map is wrong. Right?
I will agree to disagree with you.
So you're saying that
See, that's the
Australia
thing.
is 6,000 miles across?
I'm trying to say that I don't know how across Australia is because I've never navigated Australia myself.
Again,
no one in this present age is going to. No, I'm not going to book a flight somewhere to prove anything. I want to do it myself. I want to go there. I want to go there, sir.
I've done it. And
I can't just look at this.
Okay, I've done it.
What, you've gone there, went around Australia, and did the 6,000. You've done that.
Yes.
Do it. Let's do it. I'll go by myself. If you say you've done it, I can't trust that you just say that you did it. I need to do it myself.
Yes, that's the problem. Of even if I had a spaceship and I took you up in the spaceship, then the flat Earth people would say that you've sold out to the conspiracy.
No.
Right.
If you took me up in the spaceship,
The flat Earthers
you would
will
only
deny you in a moment. You're just
No,
lying
if you
because
took
you're
me
part
up-
of the conspiracy now.
if you took a spaceship up, you will not get past the firmament. We can hypotheticalize
There is
all
no
of this
firmament.
all day. Prove that there's not a firmament. Prove that there's not a firmament outside of NASA telling you they
Okay.
went to space,
How do we do
showing
that?
you all the pictures, and prove to me that you can leave Earth orbit.
Okay, how do we actually
Let's set up
prove that? How do we prove it?
You tell me outside. Let's get a
I
rocket.
tell you,
We
but
shoot it
everybody
up.
That has done
Let's
that.
get a rocket.
Okay,
Okay,
Hold on.
let's get a rocket.
as I said, if I take
Okay, go ahead.
you up into a spaceship, then you will just be written off as a liar.
Mhm.
So every single
All you did was take me in a spaceship. What are you trying to show me?
if I take you in a spaceship and I show you the Earth and we watch the whole thing rotate, and you now know for certain because you've already experienced it, and now no one will believe you. The flat Earth people will deny you because you've bought out to the conspiracy. Just like every single person who has crossed Antarctica in its entirety, well, they're liars now too because they're part of the conspiracy. And everybody that's standing on the Antarctic shores and watching the sunset in the ocean and not in Antarctica, well, they're part of the conspiracy too. Fake news, fake news. That's the bullshit excuse. So how do we get past the bullshit excuse to actually prove this? I've already demonstrated that your map is wrong, and the only way that we can account for these flight patterns if it is a globe, like everybody says and can show that it is. So you say, well, nobody's ever gone across Australia. Yes, they have. Nobody's ever been past the firmament. There is no firmament. Yes, they've been to the moon. Yes, we've sent probes to Mars. These things have happened. You can't just randomly select what you don't want to believe and then accuse me of having a bias.
Oh, that's it? Okay. Still, you can take me to space all you want. All you're going to do is end up proving yourself wrong. People are not going to believe you anymore. Your followers are going to say that he's a charlatan.
Have
How
followers.
dare Aaron get involved with this flat earth guy
don't have
that then
followers.
completely changed it?
And if I went
Oh,
up,
whoever the people are
I went up, it
whoever the
wouldn't be-
people are that
it
watch
wouldn't
you.
be- It wouldn't be my
People.
personal experience
Pick
that anybody would have
apart
to
what I'm
believe.
saying.
It would never be a situation where I'm pleading with people to believe me from my personal experience. I'm going to bring evidence.
Me either.
I'm going to bring evidence which you have not done. I will have a model that actually explains gravity, that explains the Coriolis effect, that explains the poles, the aurora,
Mhm.
not just on Earth, but also on Mars. Why are these other places that are spheres, have aurora, have
Yeah.
poles, have the same kind of magnetosphere that we have, but you say we don't have? And I would have to have an explanation of gravity that somehow exceeds that of the two smartest men in history, Einstein and Newton. You somehow have exceeded the
Yeah,
wisdom of
we
the
know.
two smartest people in history, and you don't have an explanation for any of it.
History. Well,
What's that?
I'm looking at the smartest people in history, like Picard, Dr. Augusta Picard. I'm looking at what? Nikola Tesla, but let's just talk about the smartest people that ever lived
Okay,
that gave us a
is Tesla
heliocentric model
smarter-
that we can follow the laws of relativity. And
Who is smarter than
People.
Newton or Einstein? Who in history is smarter than Newton or Einstein?
but who is Dr. Augusta Picard is or was? Have you ever heard of him before?
Smarter than Newton and Einstein.
I'm asking you if you ever heard of Dr. Augusta Picard.
No. Should I have? Why should I have?
You should, because he has been omitted from history because he took a balloon into the utmost atmosphere Earth and made some very fascinating discoveries.
Okay, so the reason that I've never
Why
heard
I
of
call
this
it-
guy- the reason I've never heard of this guy is because he was omitted
Because
from
he's-
history. And the reason he was omitted from history
Okay.
is because he's smarter than Newton and Einstein. And how do we know that he's smarter than Newton?
Smarter about scientists that people aren't even giving them the credit for doing what they did, let alone know who they are to begin with.
Do you know why?
Yeah,
we
everybody
say-
knows Nikola Tesla, but
Do you know why we say that
He-
Newton and Einstein were the smartest people in history?
you said that they were the smartest
I just
people
said,
in
do you
history.
know
All
why
they did
we
was
say
come up with equations. I don't understand
All they
why
did was
that
come up with
we are so.
scary
I
math
I
that
just
is-
can't.
Yeah, they came up with mathematics that was beyond the capacity of any other human. So this guy, Jean-Luc Picard, you're talking about, can you show me what calculations, what physics equations he came up with to show that he is smarter than Newton and Einstein?
I'll do this for you because I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
You do it.
I think it was unfair to say that this guy that I've never heard of because apparently he was a quack is smarter than the smartest people in the world. I mean, I wasn't basing an
Look at,
argument on.
but look him up though.
Okay.
Challenge yourself to look him up and see what's
It's not a
going on
challenge
there.
To me, you tell me to look him up. Okay, I'll look him up. That's not a challenge. And what some guy, what they say, and what little conspiracy theories, this is not evidence. What is evidence? Is
This-
things that we can demonstrate, the things we can demonstrate, the things I have demonstrated for you on this show that you've just thrown off. When a model fails, as yours has failed, to explain anything we've talked about so far, I mean, literally nothing. And then we have the heliocentric model that actually works in all of these instances without failure and
Mhm.
completely
Right.
consistently. So that matters.
Yeah.
And that we know that there's a number of factors that yours can't account for and that proves it wrong. The lunar eclipse, the solar
Mhm.
eclipse, the width of Australia, the flight patterns we were talking about, all these things prove
That proves
your
anything, but
position
okay.
wrong. So now what would it take to prove the existence or the non-existence, both, of your firmament?
Show me.
No. What
Give
do you
me
suggest?
something.
You're
No.
going to prove the firmament exists. So you show me.
Okay.
Okay. How do we do that? Because you can't just say in science, I believe. We don't care. Nobody gives a damn what you believe. All that matters is
It was
why
a science
you believe
show.
it. All
I didn't
it
know
is.
this was
You're
a
talking
science
about-
show.
We're talking about whether the earth is flat or not. How is that going to be anything other than science? Of course it's science. That's all it can be. So you can't
No,
say it's
that's
science. I
not
believe.
all it can be. That's all that's accepted for it to be. That's all that we've grown for it to be. We
What else
have
could
grown
it
to
be?
accept what has been told to us, and
Okay.
regardless of what we see with our natural eyes,
So the Earth
instead
is
of
not
questioning anything.
I can question
Well,
everything.
the
I want.
Earth-
I
no.
question
No.
everything.
The earth is measurable. The earth
Yes.
is measurable. The
Okay.
fact of it is that it's not round. And I remember something
How
where
is that a
somebody
fact?
said,
The fact, you know what a fact
when I
is?
laid
A
the
fact-
foundations of the earth,
Excuse me.
where were you when I hung the heavens in the sky? Where were you
We're quoting
when I
mythology.
did all of this?
You're talking about man-made mythology that's completely irrelevant to what we're talking about right now. The stories men made up have no bearing on this. We're talking about things that we can measure and demonstrate.
That is incredibly not true.
So, that's incredibly true. A fact is a point of data that is objectively verifiable. So you cannot claim a fact that is not a fact.
Mm.
So if you say it's a fact, it has to be objectively verifiable. I have to be able to verify it as well. You can show it to me and I can find it
Right.
for myself. Either way we do it, we can come to this point. Yeah, well, I have to agree. This is what the data is. You're talking about facts that are not facts, that are not verified. Okay, so
Yeah, you're right.
You can't just say things without any support. In science, now in religion, you can pull shit out of your ass, make up stuff all you want to, but in
Yeah, that's
science,
sad.
you can't. You have to actually show that there's a there. You have to show that the things
Uh-huh.
that you're saying actually are true. So
Mhm.
how do you want to assert that there's a firmament, then we have to have a model that actually explains how gravity works or how the simulation of gravity works. And you have to account, there can't be any consistencies or contradictions. And we have inconsistencies. And I've shown you a number of inconsistencies with the shapes of the width of Australia and then the flight patterns we were talking about. And there can't be any contradictions, such as the lunar and the solar eclipse. So your model has failed every way that it could possibly fail, and it doesn't have any kind of support
Okay.
at all. So give us something so you can
Okay.
verify.
Okay.
How do we substantiate that a firmament exists?
Okay. How do we do that?
Yeah.
things in order to get to the firmament at the edge, around the sides, and at the top. To prove that, sir.
Okay, so if we went to Australia, if we went to Antarctica, as people have done,
Okay.
and we fly across Antarctica, from one
Dude,
to
that's
the other,
amazing.
right? And people have done that. Then and then when they circumnavigate Antarctica, and people have done that too, even centuries
Yes.
ago, people had already done that. So it doesn't matter how many people do that, because you're just going to write it off that they didn't really do that. That's fake news, right? So how do we
No,
verify that?
I'm not saying that they really didn't. I didn't say that they did that at all. To Antarctica that we can't go to.
But we can, and as I said, I know people
we
who go to
can't.
Antarctica.
Like if you have a guided tour, that guide is going to take you on a tour.
And even without a guided
Aided
tour,
tour.
you can still fly across it, and people have.
Yeah. Who's flying the plane? Who's flying?
Do I have?
You're flying you're flying in an area.
Mhm.
An area.
So yeah. and so
Okay.
if you fly from if you fly from one end of Antarctica to the other end, and you find out that it's actually not a ring around the Earth, a disk, but is actually a single small continent, because you've flown across the entirety of the whole thing, and the sun rises and sets in the oceans north of it, not at it, then that proves that the world is a sphere and that there's no firmament, right?
Understand, why wouldn't the sun set in the oceans if there's nothing but water left out there for the sun to set into?
Because you're missing
Of
the
course.
point. If the Earth is a disk, as you say, and Antarctica surrounds the entirety of that disk, then the sun must rise and set in Antarctica. But if you're in Antarctica and you look out and you see the sun north of you, not south of you, north of you, rising and setting, that proves it's not happening in Antarctica.
So that proves it's only happening in that little continent that we see, and it disappears
it's not
under the
happening
curvature
in
of the Earth.
It's not happening in that continent. The sun is
Happening,
not
and the sun disappears over the curvature.
right. It's not
the
rising
Earth.
or setting in Antarctica. It rises and it appears, when we see it occurring over the horizon, it's north of Antarctica every time.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Just
wow,
like
that's
it's
fascinating.
south, just like it's always south of you when you're like on the Arctic Circle. The sun is always to your side. It rises and sets to the south.
Oh, I don't have an explanation. I'm sure it can be explained. Tend to get that explanation for you because I know there is one.
What? You don't know that, actually. You really don't. You want there to be one, you hope there's one, but you don't know it.
Okay.
Because knowledge
Well,
is
damn.
demonstrable.
Know this because I'm
Because
a
knowledge
lunatic
is demonstrable.
out of my mind.
I know this,
and I have
because
no-
the word knowledge means that it is demonstrable, that you can, with measurable accuracy. You can't say you know things if you can't actually show that you know it. Right?
See, but then knowing something only comes and if they choose. It's a choice, regardless of what you show them. It's a choice for a person to believe it or not.
No.
I-
Your knowledge.
Okay,
your knowledge is
so
not
no
a
matter
choice.
what, I'm trying to tell you, it is a choice because I choose not to believe
Okay.
everything that I've ever been told.
What you choose
And it actually answers for
believe-
myself.
What you choose to believe has no impact on what I actually know. So if I say that I know things,
It has no
way-
bearing on
if
what I
say
know
that
either.
things- if I say that I know things and there's no way I can possibly know them, then you know that I'm lying. I don't actually know them. I don't actually
Mm-hmm.
know it until I can show that what I say that I know is actually correct. And if you can't
Right.
at all, then you can't know it at all. So you don't know that there is an explanation.
Okay.
You want there to be one.
Okay.
There is not one. There
Yeah,
is not
because
an
I'm just
explanation.
delusional out of my mind and I have
Okay,
no
I
idea
take
what
that,
I'm
I take
talking
that.
about.
There is an explanation for these things. And that explanation is
And the clinical explanation is
the Earth is a sphere, not a disk. That's what the explanation is. That's why your models don't work. That's why there are so many inconsistencies.
Okay.
That's why there's contradictions. That's why there's fuck all evidence to support it. That's why you can't explain any of these things. That's why gravity doesn't work. That's why Mars has poles when it shouldn't have poles. That's why moons go around planets when they can't in your model. That's why the sun rises and sets below the horizon where it can't in your model. That's the explanation. The explanation is you're wrong. The Earth is a sphere.
Right. Okay. Well, hey, YouTube, I am wrong. Ali is wrong, and there's absolutely no truth or any evidence to support anything that I'm saying according. Now, YouTube, this is what I get for you. To you, take an opportunity, search, to question what you've been told, to try to find answers if you question these things. Of anyone that you're crazy, regardless of anyone who doesn't see, who doesn't feel, who needs other things in their life to prove their existence to them. Outside of that part, what's inside of you, and do some research. Try to find the answers to the questions, because when you look up, you don't see, it just doesn't look right. Something doesn't feel right. I'm talking to the people who have those feelings. The show, it's not to prove to you, sir, that the earth is flat, or to come up with some insurmountable evidence to get you to come to the conclusion that it's flat. I'm not here to speak to you. I'm here to talk to the people who are absolutely batshit crazy, who have a belief in something that they choose to pay attention to in a very different perspective than what they've become accustomed to. And I'm talking to.
I
We
guess
can find these answers together, guys.
I want to thank you for that. That's a beautiful closing comment. Melandra, I would like to have closed on that, but go ahead and say what you want.
I guess if you're not here to talk to him, that you're here to talk to other people, then we've been kind of having a pointless discussion here. Like we've been trying to demonstrate to you that the Earth is spherical. We even had somebody call in from Australia, and you couldn't explain it with your model, why he's in a different season and a different day, and so many other things. And I think we're just going around in circles. And at the end of the day, it seems like your main point is, well, I see that you're saying this, but I feel differently, and that's subjective. Like
I mean, and that should be okay.
People, but what if they don't want? They feel like, well, I don't feel that.
Everybody's entitled to their opinions, guys. Everybody's entitled to believe, feel.
We're not saying that you're not entitled to your beliefs. What we're saying is, if you want other people to believe you, you need to have demonstrable evidence.
That's the thing. The people who I talk to, they either believe me, question it, look for research, do their own thing. That's the whole point. It's not to get people to believe me, but to at least put a question in their head like, man, and it don't quite seem like it's that far away, and actually do some research and try to get their brains working past what we've been told, because a lot of stuff that we've been told, regardless of, it's not true. And I believe that, and I
would agree with most
prove
of
it
what
in a
you're
different
saying.
show.
I certainly encourage people, don't just believe what you're told, you do the research. Are you suggesting that I have not done the research?
Oh, Dr. Augusta Pickard is one of the main people who studied this and
are you suggesting
searched
that I
and not coming across him?
Okay. Are you?
I'm suggesting is that there's a mainstream.
I've actually been to Australia. I actually did the flight across the thing. I've different places. I've seen it for myself. I've certainly done the reading. I didn't happen across your crackpot, but is that necessary before I could say that I've done the reading? And when I read about this guy an hour from now, will you say that I've done the research then, or is there some other criteria that I have to meet?
I just want it to be a little bit more than just a mainstream idea of what the flat earth is, because it's a lot bigger than that.
Okay. If there's no evidence for it, the model can't account for direct observations, and those observations actually contradict that model, it has failed. You understand that? If your model maintains that Australia is 6,000 miles across, and we can prove that it is less than half of that, then the model has failed. You understand that?
I do understand it. Be another knock against me. Man, I just can't trust people's observations anymore.
I'm not asking that you do that.
I
You know
can't.
how to verify this on your own.
You're asking me to tell you my model is wrong because another model presented itself, and based off of your observations and what you've actually done, travels and everything, that model, because you have other proofs.
Your model is wrong because Australia is not 6,000 miles wide. Your model is wrong because the flight from Sydney to Johannesburg is not possible in your model. Your model is wrong because it can't account for lunar eclipses or solar eclipses or any other thing that we brought up. Your model is wrong because it is not supported by any evidence at all and is contradicted by all the evidence we know about, and has to be paranoid and declare conspiracy theory in order to, fake news anything else away. That's why your model is wrong. It's unsupported.
So this is the issue. The issue at hand. Not wrong. Model. My flat earth model, the idea that I know that the earth is flat. I really have to tell you that it's 6,000 miles across. I don't know the measurements of the continents according to my flat earth model. That doesn't mean that I need to stop believing the earth is flat. It just means that I need to do either research or explore.
Okay.
Do this stuff myself.
If you can't demonstrate that what you say.
Right. But if I can, see, this is the thing that I get about you.
Can't.
There is absolutely no chance, absolutely no chance at all. Right. Because there is absolutely no doubt. There is no doubt that possible. I don't think that you truly believe in the existence of true possibilities because of all the research that you've done. I think that there's possibly an opportunity. There could very well possibly be an opportunity that as much as you know, as much as you've experienced, to be something there beyond just what's on paper, what's been found. There's so much more there.
I just that there is more there. But to say that everything we know is wrong and that we know things we can't show, both of those statements for different reasons are incorrect. You're saying you know things you do not know. And you're saying we don't know things that we in fact know. Do you see the problem with that?
You cut out there. I saw your lips move, man, but I couldn't make out what that was.
Well, hopefully that's not going to be the issue for everybody else. I would like to let it go and just end the podcast. Once again, I want to thank you for coming on. As I said, I know it was a hostile, but we did this for 3 hours. And this is crazy. This is on top of the other 2 hours that you've already given us. So you did a 5-hour podcast essentially. And I really do sincerely appreciate you coming on like this. And my intent, and I know this, you had maybe a different intent, but my intent was to try to reason with you, to try to get you to understand that you can't say that you know things when you don't actually know them, and you can't cite facts that aren't actually facts. And and
Okay.
why a model collapses. I mean, what bases a scientific theory and how that works. I wanted you to understand that. I don't know if you do. I'd like to.
No, hey, I do.
Okay.
If you like to think that I do, think that I do. Understand that I absolutely do. Are.
Okay. Well, I'm glad.
I
about
understand.
That. All right. So Ali, Jen Show. What was the other name? Jen Show.
Tetsaiga.
Okay.
I also really want to say, pleasure meeting you. It's been my pleasure speaking with you. I appreciate your audience who has tuned in. Questions, all of those things are much appreciated. I want to make sure that people understand that I know something. I'm saying I believe something. I'm saying that I have my proof. Share my proof with everybody? No, I don't. To hear me will hear me. He who has an ear to try to understand what I'm saying will do the research to try to gain more information. Speaking to.
All right.
And I appreciate you for letting me doing that.
Thank you very much. I have one last question, if I may. And you don't even have to answer it. If somebody were to get you to Antarctica and fly you across it, would you accept that as proof that the Earth has to be a sphere?
Sir, basically all you're telling me is that I flew over a continent that I'm supposed to say that that's all of Antarctica. Believe that? No. Continent?
So
That
even if you have
right.
compass-
Can we go beyond that? Let's do that.
if you go around it, then you can see the shoreline
Right.
all the way back. So you get to go all the way around Antarctica and come back to the very place that you landed. So you know that you actually did see the whole thing. Would you accept that?
I will accept that I went around all of Antarctica and landed back to where I was. That doesn't prove to me that.
And that proves
Anything?
that Antarctica is not a 16,000 mile wide ring around the Earth. That it is in fact only a small circular continent.
Actually just proves to me that it's just a little small spot that we flew over where people live at and we call it Antarctica.
But if you flew around the
It's
edge
really
of
it's not.
Antarctica, so that you can
Understand what you're saying. All I did was go around the edge of a continent that we call Antarctica. Is that
Right.
going to
So that proves that Antarctica is not the ring around the Earth that you said it was.
to you? That proves to you. That doesn't prove to me. I want to see the ring. I want to see the
Okay.
200
You
foot
want to see the
wall.
ring that
Have.
doesn't exist. So how do we prove that the ring
Well,
doesn't
how do
exist?
you know the ring doesn't exist? You
By the
don't know the
reasons
ring
I
doesn't
have already
exist because you flew around the continent and was like, hey, the Earth is round. I just flew around.
If,
All the other math makes sense too.
okay, so
I've seen these things with my eyes, but everything must be true. I've done this before.
you flew around
You can't
Antarctica,
tell me it doesn't exist because you choose not to believe it or
I don't
even
choose-
question the
I
fact
don't
that it could
choose-
exist.
I don't choose to believe. I have no
Well,
choice in
let's
that.
go. Let's try to go past that. Let's try to go past that and see where we get. If you want to take a trip, I'll try to put whatever I can to get the money together to take a trip and see what we actually find.
Okay, I just want to know. So if you went to Antarctica and you followed the coastline in a plane so that you can actually see it properly, you follow it all the way around so that you know that you've seen the whole thing.
Are you
Right? Right?
really need you to get what I'm saying?
Right. I need you to get what I'm
We
saying.
could fly around
Right. And so you
fly
are
around
you're
Antarctica
saying-
all we want.
You're saying that Antarctica is not the
Mhm.
thing that you just observed it to be by flying around it. You're saying that it's actually the ring around the Earth, and that if we follow the coastline there, the way you're saying, that we would have to cover a diameter of 16,000 miles, which means we would have to refuel that airplane 80 times in order to make that distance. But if we can do it on a single tank of gas, that proves it's not the ring you say it is, right?
Right.
Okay.
Do that.
Yeah, well, we can do that. It's possible to do that. It's just a matter of coming up with the money to put your ass.
Yeah,
on a
we
plane
need the money,
and fly you
man.
around Antarctica.
Right.
We can do that.
America, same shit.
What's that?
There's not a ring. That just proves that what we
How
flow
is it
over
not?
is
Of course
called
it proves.
Antarctica.
Of course it proves that
No,
it's
because
not.
if we listen, if we have somebody say, "Hey, this is Antarctica," right? Around Antarctica, that's what I'm gonna do. Fly around Antarctica.
Okay, so you know.
Actually, try to find a ring which is way beyond Antarctica.
Okay.
Now go.
Antarctica,
Don't
according to
show
your
me
model-
Antarctica because that's not going to prove anything to me.
According to your model, Antarctica is a ring around the entire disk of the world, right?
Yes.
So you could not, if you're correct, then we wouldn't be able to do this coastline navigation on less than 80 refuelings of fuel, right? But if I'm correct, then you could do the whole thing on a single tank, right?
Yeah, that's because you think Antarctica is just that one place right there. You can do
But
that on a
you're
full tank of
saying
gas.
It's something else.
Of course.
You're saying it's
Yeah,
this
it's something
massive ring.
else.
So how do we prove it's not this massive ring? How would we prove that it is this massive ring?
We would have to fly out to where we would think that the ring could be, which is
Okay,
past
so- and where
anything
is-
that.
How do we know where the ring is? Because you said it was Antarctica. That Antarctica is huge. It goes all the way around. So we would have to go to Antarctica, right?
Yep.
Right?
But
So-
not the continent Antarctica that you want me to fly around. That you're trying to get me to. You're trying to get me to say, "Oh,
What is there
stop
another
playing the
Antarctica?
games with me, sir. You're playing
Is there another Antarctica?
Antarctica. There's
there
only
another
one
Antarctica?
Antarctica, but the Antarctica that you believe is Antarctica is bigger than just that one little continent that they say.
Okay, so if you flew around it, that would prove that I'm right and you're wrong, right?
Prove that Antarctica that you say it is around and you can fly around it. That don't prove nothing. All that proves is that we flew in a plane around a continent.
So
That's
you're
all
saying
that
there's a
proved.
different Antarctica. You're saying there's a
There's
different
a different Antarctica. There's a different Antarctica.
Where's this other Antarctica?
Okay. Miss Lalandra, I'm going to quote you. I'm not going over this information again. You just said it that it was the ring around the yeah. So
So if
don't
you
ask
go to-
me where's Antarctica if you already know that you stated Antarctica is around.
So when people
Okay,
go
so what do we say?
to Antarctica,
When
which
people
is
go,
the
they go to
south-
the Antarctica. They go to the Antarctica that everybody goes to, the tourist attraction,
It's the-
the place where you go.
Antarctica. It's not a
It's
tourist
the s-
attraction.
Well, I mean, it should be, but it's not.
So
It should be.
People do scientific research in Antarctica.
They're
Are they going
and they're
to
the only
Antarctica
ones
I
that
know?
allow.
Okay, are they are
that are
they
allowed
going to
there.
the same place? Are they all the
They're-
same?
So when scientists go to Antarctica, they go to that continent you want me to fly around to try to prove to me that Antarctica is there.
And if we want
It's
to,
that everybody who goes to Antarctica goes there.
okay,
Anybody who wants to go beyond that is
Beyond
going to
what?
get in.
South of
it-
the South
yes.
Pole?
If you want to throw a pole on there, yeah, south of the South Pole, because for some reason everything's supposed to be underneath this globe
Where would we
and
find
a upside
where
down
would we
buildings or
find-
pictures of anything like that. But I it's whatever.
Your model was that Antarctica was a ring around the Earth, and now you're saying that even if we went to that and flew around it and saw that it was actually just a small continent.
That's
not a
because
big
you
ring,
said pole.
that
You
still-
see how you're trying to do my words? It's because you said pole is the reason why I said if you want to use a pole, then that's where we're going.
Hear me out here.
It doesn't
You s-
matter.
you-
Let's
yeah.
end.
let it does matter. So you said it's a ring. You said it's a ring
Hold on,
around
Mr.
the world,
Rock.
right? So if we're going to go see this ring, where do we go? Where do we go to see that?
Well, let's start as far south as we can go.
Okay, and when we end
And
up in
from
Antarctica-
there-
and when we end up
Right.
in
And
Antarctica,
from there, from there, further south.
how do you go south of the South Pole?
Okay. And what does that mean?
Well, when your compass
What does the
says-
South Pole mean?
Okay, when you're continuing, when you
Actually.
get to Antarctica and you continue south, at some point your compass is going to be confused because you're on the opposite pole now, right?
Why would
So
it-
when your
okay.
When you continue in the same straight line direction, and now your compass says you're going north again, but you never turned around, you're not following your own tracks, you're still going that way.
Right.
Well, how do you go
So
south
to
of
me-
there?
because this is true north. Compasses point to the true north that's in the middle of this earth. If you're circumventing the ocean, point on your compass is always going to point north. No matter how far you go around, you're going to think you're going around the globe because your compass is always pointing in the north direction. If you were to take your north compass, there's your Antarctica. If you were to go further below that, that is your ice wall.
Okay, so if you go further,
No matter
below-
where you are,
Okay,
no matter where you are,
if we
you're
get
going to
to
run
the-
into ice no matter what.
So we get to Iceland, or we not Iceland. We get to Antarctica, and we continue going south, right? Straight line.
What
Continue
south,
south.
yeah.
What happens? We don't hit an
Mhm.
ice wall. What happens when there's no firmament? What happens when the compass?
So how about this?
What happens when the compass?
How about this? How about this? Ask
That's
yourself
just-
this question, because you're asking me this, because I've asked myself these questions like, what if all of this other stuff? Ask yourself this. What if there is a damn ice wall? What if they gave us permission and a guide to walk to the furthest as far as we can go with all the equipment that we would need to do it? And there's
actually need
actually
permission.
something out there.
You don't
Huh?
actually need permission, but yeah, we can do.
Oh,
it.
yes, you do.
No,
Yes,
we
you do
don't.
need permission.
We
Now,
don't.
hold on. You're absolutely right. To visit the Antarctica that you want me to fly around, you do not need that. You're absolutely right.
So to verify that there is the firmament and the connection and the ring and all like that, you admit we would go to the one and only Antarctica, right?
Yeah, we got to start somewhere.
And so if we flew around that circle
Antarctica.
and discovered that Antarctica was in fact only this small continent and not a ring around the planet, that would prove that it's not a disk, right?
No, that would see when you use words like only, that's trying to get me to get into the thing that what I'm going to say is I'm going to agree with you. I'm not going to agree with you. It's not proving to me.
How do we
that the Earth-
disprove? How do we disprove your theory?
The way to disprove my theory.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way you're putting it. I'm trying to use words you would understand. Science has to have.
Because I don't understand other words. Look, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm not stupid. I'm not patient who doesn't have any understanding of what they say this world is, what they say the world is about, what it's made of, even though they've only drilled so far into the earth and now all of a sudden we have a core or whatever. So it's going to allow you, because you don't see things I do or whatever it may be, for you to insult my intelligence.
I'm not. I never suggested. You were
No.
But you
When
are
you
using different
no,
terms
but
than I am.
to do. You're trying to play the words on me so that I can admit to something, so that I can sound confused and you can debunk
I'm
once
not
again
trying to
somebody
make you
who believes in the flat earth that has absolutely no proof outside of what they
Absolutely
believe in.
not.
I think we
I'm
need
not
I
trying to
wanna-
do anything like that.
because
I'm not
I
trying to
truly
confuse
believe,
you.
because your wording, sir, your wording is really
Let me-
triggering me here.
this is listen. I think it's time to end this.
Yeah, you
Does-
then get off the call. Let
Does
me just
matter.
finish.
Listen, it does matter what it
All right,
is matter or not. It does not matter what you say to him about Antarctica because he feels differently, and you.
I want to explain this. I'm going to explain this, and you can't stop me. I'm going to explain this. I have control of this. I will explain this thing, and you can't shut me up.
You'll explain it, and he won't
And
understand.
then he won't get it, and then yeah,
Understand.
he'll think that
I do
I got
get
that,
it.
but I'm still going to explain this. I don't need to explain it to you first. Let me explain it. Let it go.
No, this is breaking. This is all
Well, I
getting
gotta
out of hand.
Let me say the thing.
Let's.
In science, there's two things you have to do. You have to first verify that what you're saying is actually correct, and for that you need a model that does all these things, as we talked about before. But the other thing is you have to know, one, that there's truth to it. So you have to be able to show the truth to it, but you also have to show some way of showing whether it's false. So given that anything could be false, we have to have a way to disprove it. And so I've been trying to ask you, what is the way to falsify this? And I would have thought that flying around Antarctica was surely the way to do it, but you say it's not. So what is the
No.
way to prove that wrong?
For me and everything that I've experienced, not questioning you at all. I just need to see more. I need to see more. I can't just take what I've been told. I can't just take what I see even. I have to know more because I know what I'm being told is not the truth. And I know that what I see and experience is completely different than what I would say anybody would experience if they're in between trying to believe things they see and what they've been told, or knowing what they've been told because it's been proven and not questioning anything at all.
Okay. I'm going to let you go with that. Thank you. And once again, just thanks for being on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Good night, guys.